We're live. It's Friday. It's the lock-in. You're all very welcome. Thanks for joining us. I'm excited to be back. We took last week off, a little bit of rest and family time, and we're back, all guns blazing, whiskey in glasses, excited for a great night of chat, of stories, a few sips, of course, and exploring Irish whiskey together. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're safe. I hope you're hopeful, remain hopeful, despite the challenges that I know we're all facing in our respective communities. The goal of the lock-in is to bring us all together. It's to have a place where we can raise a glass, where we can hang out, have conversations and the chat with each other, with your other like-minded whiskey family and friends. And it's a place where hopefully we can get distracted from the chaotic world outside and gather in our virtual pub until we can do so in person again. So this is the lock-in. We've been doing it almost every week for the past year and 2 months now at this stage, and we'll continue to do so. And we've got some really great lock-ins coming over the coming weeks and months. So thank you all for joining. I'm looking forward to talking about 3 great whiskies, 2 great guests. So get your whiskey into your glass. I'm starting with Powers John's Lane, and we will start sipping on that and talking about the evening ahead. You're all very welcome. Thanks for joining. Thanks for tuning in. It's Friday. We're back. We took a week off last week. The turtleneck is back. The whiskies are back. And great to see so many familiar faces already in the audience. So Michael and JM and Shamini and Ed Powers, Thomas Wilson. Great to see you all. Let us know what's in your glass, what you're drinking. I see lots of great drinks and pours around the world. Cahor says turtleneck and tortoise shell glasses. You're sensing a theme. Yes, well, it's been the same theme now for the last 2 years of between podcasts and live streams, 3 years, and we're not no sign of us changing the theme yet. Shabini's got a generous Thomond Gate Peter Lacy single pot still. Fantastic. Our first guest tonight will be excited to hear all about that shortly. Paul Andrew Thornton has Knappogue Castle. Good man. Liam Brogan, previous guest, 2 Stacks Whiskey. Great to see you. Welcome, Liam. Yeehaw, he says. Yeehaw indeed. Guitar Man is happy to be back after missing 3 weeks of lock-ins, sipping Knappogue Castle 12-year-old and Bushmills Black in North Carolina. You're very welcome. Thanks for joining in. Thomas has got the Dunville's 1808. Great stuff. We'll be sipping on that. It'll be our second whiskey this evening. Michael Mullen joining us from Glasgow with Redbreast 12-year-old. He missed last week, there not being a show. Yep, me too. It felt like I'd lost a limb. But we're back today, all limbs in tow. 3 Swallow for Christy Lee Ashley. Great stuff. So this is our first whiskey tonight, Powers John's Lane, a very familiar whiskey to so many of you. There isn't a whiskey fan that can say they're honestly an Irish whiskey fan if they don't have a drop of Powers John's Lane on the shelf, or that they're hoping to get it. It is a stellar drop of whiskey. Single pot still whiskey. A little hat tip to the old John's Lane Distillery in Dublin, which would have produced Powers whiskey for almost 200 years. Remarkable history indeed in Dublin. And Powers John's Lane was released 2012. I think it hit the market in Ireland. A 12-year-old single pot still Powers. Of course, the Powers whiskey that took over the world back in the early 1800s, right up to the late 1800s, in the heyday of Irish whiskey. The Powers whiskey that took over the world would have been pot still whiskey, and Powers John's Lane is a little nod, little hat tip to that whiskey. A 12-year-old whiskey, which means, of course, that the whiskey has been matured for a minimum of 12 years. Ex-bourbon casks and a little bit small quantity of sherry casks as well. But this is a complex, layered, vibrant whiskey. It quickly became one of my favorites after first trying it, when somebody kindly introduced me to it, and I have been thanking them ever since. Wonderful oily nose to it. You can tell there's body coming. It's going to greet you on the tongue as soon as you sip on it. Wonderful pear notes, a little bit of dark fruit notes, but vanilla, a little bit of caramel, a little bit of sweetness coming through. Take a little sip of this. Wonderful pot still spice, black pepper, somewhere between white and black pepper, maybe even cracked black pepper. And to me, with John's Lane, there's always kind of a leather note, a chocolate note, a dark note. This is a brown. I think of whiskies and colours. This is brown. This is a workman's tool belt, leather. This is little hint of sherry, little hint of nuttiness, nutty sweetness, nuttiness/sweetness coming through from the sherry, from the Oloroso sherry casks, the European oak. But this is a complex, layered. It grows, it evolves, it opens up, it takes its time. You want to take your time with it. It's not something you'd knock down the neck fast. I drink it neat. I don't add any water, don't add any ice. But we're sipping on John's Lane. I'd love to know if you like it, if you've tried it, if you want to try it, if you've got any notes from it, let me know. Lovely medium finish to it. It's not dry, it's not sweet, it just kind of lives somewhere between the two of them on the throat as it goes down. So this is our first whiskey tonight that we are sipping on, bottled at 46% or 92 proof. And of course, the new brand, the new label adorning it there. Eamon Malone says his absolute favourite. Jason's missing the John's Lane, so hitting the 2 stacks. Great stuff. Laura Barry in Cork, warming up with the John's Lane, and she'll enjoy a drop of Thomond Gate a little bit later on. Great stuff. Great stuff. Donner Pass Whiskey says it looks like they've repackaged the bottle. They have indeed. Last year, the 3 whiskies in the range, Powers John's Lane, Powers 3 Swallow, and Powers Gold Label were all repackaged. The bottle is a little hat tip and a little homage to the old pot stills of John's Lane, this shape at the top. These would have been these pot stills, these onion-shaped kind of pot stills sitting on little brick towers in the John's Lane Distillery, and they're still on display in the John's Lane campus, which is now the National College of Art and Design in Dublin. So next time you're in Dublin, when the world opens up and we can all travel to Dublin again, if you visit the National College of Art and Design, you'll see two of the stills, I think, are sitting out in the courtyard. Maybe it's 3. And one of the stills is down in front of the Middleton Distillery. So next time you visit the Middleton Distillery, that gleaming copper pot still that greets you on the left-hand side on the grass comes from John's Lane as well. Johnny says he couldn't find it for a few weeks. He won't let the bottle empty up till the new is close by. Great stuff. Evening, Patrick from Clonakilty joining us. And Jeff says, I like the new bottle design better. Yeah, I didn't like it to begin with, but it's grown on me. And the weight of it, big heavy bottle, takes up a bit of space. It's wider than the older bottle shape. Like I think the old bottle was about this wide, which is not as, you can see the base of it. You can see how thick the Powers is compared to Jameson, was about the same width as the old shape Powers. Yeah, it's a divisive one. Some of you like the new label, some of you don't. The good news is that the whiskey hasn't changed. The whiskey's still the same. It is a wonderful introduction to pot still whiskey. If you want to impress your friends with how good Irish whiskey is, you could do them no better favour than introduce them to a Powers John's Lane or a Redbreast 12-year-old, and they'll be your friends for the rest of your life, whether you like it or not. We've got so we've got a great show tonight. Tonight, we're celebrating a couple of gentlemen's visions, their dreams, their visions, their interests, their hobbies, the stories of businesses that have grown out of their interests and out of their visions and their hobbies. And so we'll be joined in a couple of minutes, maybe 2 minutes, we'll be joined by Nick Ryan, founder of Thomond Gate Whiskey. And Nick is going to talk to us about his journey so far in the establishment of a whiskey company. Nick has also sent me a whole pile of blind samples that I have no idea what they are. We're going to open these live on the air, and he's going to put me on the spot, but he's certainly going to talk me through what he has sent me. But these are samples, I believe, of some of the whiskies that have been released and that will be released. So I'm excited to try these. So those are ready to go when Nick joins us in a minute or two. So Powers John's Lane is our first whiskey tonight. If you've got that, feel free to sip along, share your notes with us. What are you detecting from Powers John's Lane? I'll do the same from the 3 whiskies I've got tonight. The second whiskey we'll try later on is from Dunville's, the newest Dunville's release, 1808. Brand new to the market. Beautiful bottle, beautiful label, $24.99 for this blended whiskey. Incredible value. We'll talk about this. We'll talk about the story of Ecklandville, the story of Dunville's a little bit. And then we'll end the evening with a glass of Knappogue Castle 21-year-old. And I don't have a full bottle, but I do have a sample, courtesy of a care package that I ordered from Dick Max in Dingle. So I got myself a measure of Knappogue Castle 21-year-old. So we'll talk about that later on as well. It doesn't matter what's in your glass. Hang out, share with us where you are, what you're drinking, ask any questions of our guests, and if there's anything we can do to make life a bit easier, a bit more comfortable, a bit more enjoyable on a Friday night, sure, look, let us know, and we'll do what we can. If anybody wants to come on and sing a song, we'll give you the floor as well. As simple as that. All right, so let me check the comments here before we bring Nick in. Stephen Britton, this is his first time to watch the lock-in, and he loves Irish whiskey, so this should be fun. Stephen in North Carolina, you're very welcome, and you're amongst good buddies here and a great whiskey community. And Stephen, if you haven't already done so, join our Facebook group, Irish Whiskey Fans of America. You'll find lots of other people in North Carolina as well. Before we bring Nick on, one reminder that I wanted to share with you, one kind of update. This week, Tuesday, we released episode number 8 of the Waterford Whiskey podcast. For those of you who've been following along, over the last 2 months, every single week, we've released an episode from 1 to 8, where I have a kind of documentary style podcast where I've interviewed scientists, distillers, blenders, whiskey drinkers, whiskey fans, founders, all about all aspects, farmers, growers, all aspects of the whiskey making process. And it's been a labor of love. It's been a huge process, a huge project, a huge undertaking to create this, these what turned out to be about 4.5 hours of a podcast season. And it's been an incredible journey, and we've had amazing feedback. Why I wanted to bring it to your attention is because now you can binge on all 8 episodes. The season is finished. It's over for now. We will have more coming, but season 1, which was diving into all aspects of whiskey production to examine how is terroir preserved, protected, maximized throughout the whiskey making process. And I really encourage, if you have any interest in Irish whiskey, just go to Spotify or iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and type in Waterford Whiskey without the E, and you'll find our podcast there. We've got some great reviews and great feedback. It was a completely unbiased attempt by me to understand terroir. And the team at Waterford were very kind and a little bit trusting, and maybe they took their chances by basically handing me their address book and said, look, you can contact whomever you want, you can talk to whoever you want, you can create whatever you want. We want the story of terroir told. And so the episodes would go live on a Tuesday morning, and that would be the first time that the team at Waterford would hear that episode. And I'd imagine there was probably some trepidation and some nervousness as they pressed play to hear, well, what are people going to say, and in what way have we presented the story and the facts. But it was a completely unvarnished, unbiased attempt to understand and learn. And I'm very proud of it personally, and I'd love you to go listen to it and love you to go review it if you liked it at all. But it was a very enjoyable podcast. Dana says she's listened to it all twice. Fantastic. And Patrick Miller, big believer in terroir, and him a distiller, of course, up in Talnua in Colorado. So without further ado, why don't we bring on our first guest of the evening, Mr. Nick Ryan, all the way from Thomond Gate in Limerick. Nick, welcome to the lock-in. How are you?
Very good. And yourself?
Very good. Very good. Nick, you are no stranger. Well, we've had many conversations over the past few years. You've been on the podcast, the Stories and Sips podcast. And I remember the first time I ever came across what you were doing. You sent me some very enthusiastic emails talking about this mad idea that you had. And we got talking on the phone, which is probably about 3 years ago now. And you shared this idea for bringing whiskey back to Limerick. Would you share with our audience what this mad idea was and what you've been doing about it?
Well, it was just simply, the thought that it was kind of a very old thought that I had, but it was just, I felt the time was right. And I felt that, I'm not getting any younger and life is for, it's for adventures. And I said, feck it, pack up the job. I was working at the time in Canary Wharf in London, and, it was a good time. I enjoyed myself, but it wasn't my passion. My passion was spirits, and my passion was Ireland. I think my colleagues were sick and tired of me telling about Ireland and Limerick, and they probably said, "Will you ever feck off and go back there anyway? If you love it so much, what are you doing over here?" So my mission was to put Limerick back on the map, and that was what when we first reached out. I said, Limerick has this history, this amazing whiskey heritage, which somewhat has been, I guess, overlooked or forgotten about in the kind of this pages of history. And I just felt, it wouldn't be amazing if there is a Limerick whiskey, and I didn't have, pots full of money to make it happen. I went off and just threw my shoes across the river, as my dad would say, and swim after them, and that's what I did. And went off and tried to make it happen.
You are a proud Limerick man, and you wanted to put Limerick back on the map. We've saved you the hassle. We've put Limerick back on the map here for you, so you don't need to worry any more about it. It's sandwiched in there somewhere between Cork and not Cork, for our American guests. Limerick, historic city, a whiskey city historically.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, and it's something that Cork is not too far from ourselves, and I think the first time we met Barry, I had to travel to Cork. I literally crossed the border of Limerick, and just the first town when you hit into Cork, we met there. So I'm glad Limerick's where it is anyway.
I insisted that you cross the border and meet me on my turf, so I could control the conversation.
Absolutely. Well, it was good. It was a shame. I wasn't able to give you any whiskey at the time. I literally was traumatized from a journey down I'd made to Skibbereen. The folks at West Cork had really helped me out. I was stuck for bottling, and I had taken the back road to Skibbereen, and I was telling you a horror story about how the drum had broken the straps, and Jesus, I'll never forget it. I nearly cried. I did cry. It was one of those horrible journeys on the way down, and I thought it was all gone. And I opened the back of that van and was expecting to see liquid pouring out, but by some miracle, it was there. But at least, the whiskey is in a bottle, and it's all part of history now.
I started the show tonight drinking a little bit of Powers John's Lane. I think before we kicked off, you said you were going to grab a bit as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, a whiskey like this, trading a little bit on its historic, its history, its past, an older style of making whiskey, that old approach to whiskey production. You're doing something similar now by trying to recreate, or is it to do something completely new, or is it to recreate what was done historically with whiskey in Limerick?
Well, I've been trying to do things as much as I can to tradition, but I'm not going to be confined to it, to be honest, because I think that there's evolution and development, but there's also there's certain things that work from the past, but there's also things that are exciting about the future, and access to things that they wouldn't have had. When I look at the archives, the barley, there's a history of barley coming from the Ukraine to Limerick to make the whiskey, would you believe it? Where I'm taking barley from just 6 kilometers from the city centre. So they had the sense, knowing that it was easier to buy from the Ukraine than to grow it in Limerick. But I can tell you, it's not an easy job for a farmer to grow barley, but I think it's worth doing. That's kind of things like that I'm all about, really. But even I love sherry casks as well. One thing, if you look at the old adverts, it says about sherry casks and port casks. So things like that I'm really enthusiastic about. So I'll be taking a little bit of bits from the past, but also looking at kind of exciting stuff that our ancestors wouldn't have got a chance to get their hands on.
Is there a plan then to you talk about you're growing your own barley at the moment, and that's contributing to the whiskey that you're having distilled and then eventually aged and bottled. Is the plan to always have your own barley go to a different distillery? Is there a plan to have your own distillery in place? What's the big vision for Limerick ultimately, if you had the blank checkbook?
Yeah, well, the blank checkbook would be the distillery, absolutely. But the thing is, there's a big vision of doing that, and I think there's if you spend a lot of money building a distillery, you're building a kitchen, and the funny thing is, I think about it is that you have to become a 5-star Michelin chef before you have the restaurant. So that's kind of the way I feel that you have to be, is you have to learn and you have to develop the brand, you have to develop the product, and you use somebody else's kitchen. So that's what I'm doing, really, and also leveraging the expertise of some amazing distillers. I am doing my IBD, General Certificate in Distilling, at the moment. I have my qualification from the WSET, so I'm getting more qualifications than I set off in university, but it's one of these things that I know myself, even if I get the distillery in time, I by far I wouldn't be saying I'm going to be the one distilling it. So I might give it a go for a bit, but I'd have to get somebody a bit more talented than myself, for sure.
I remember when we chatted on the podcast, I was very curious about, I'm always very curious about the origin story of a business and what makes somebody give up the perceived or perceived security of a job and what drives them. And you shared with me this childhood memory of dusting and cleaning mirrors and antiques in the hotel in Limerick and seeing this reference to an old historic Limerick distillery, and that inspired you. It got your attention.
Absolutely. It was just, there was this big old print, and it had Limerick whiskey off on the front of it, without the E, of course, just the way they had it for the poster. And it was Archibald Walker and Thomond Gate. And when I said, you know what, this is something that's fantastic, and there was Limerick tobacco, Gary on plugs, these little tobacco plugs, and Spillane cigarettes, and Limerick was a real industrial hub. There's lots going on, but whiskey caught my fascination. It kind of had everything in it. It had this element of science, alchemy, history, culture, craft, everything. So yeah, these are one of the ones that are around, that are still around the pubs in Limerick. But I don't have a distillery, so I didn't feel it was right to put Limerick Distillery or Limerick Distillery such on the bottle. So again, Thomond Gate was the name of the distillery. So my focus was to tell the story, and in time, to step by step, bit by bit, and working with some amazing people, bringing it all back to Limerick. So that's been my goal. That's been my mission. And there's amazing people who've rallied behind me and come together to support this. And I've been blown away by the support. It's amazing to you have an idea and you think this is a good idea. I want to make this happen. And your parents are going, you really want to give up your job and do this? You've got a family. You're getting married. You're having a family. And like, yeah, I want to do this. So so far so good, but it's a long road, and that's the exact print. That's the exact one that was inside the hotel, and you can see it there on the banks of the river Shannon, just across Thomond Bridge. There on Brown's Quay was the site of the original distillery, and it's unbelievable. And it was all knocked to build the O'Dwyer's villas there, and the only part that's remaining was the home of my art teacher. So that gives you a kind of an idea of how this has always kind of been in my background, and always been something that I've been very curious about. And if you go to Thomond Gate, there is part of Distiller's View and everything like that. It's just amazing that heritage, that history was really much obliterated. But bit by bit, we're getting that story back. There is a Limerick whiskey. There is now officially, on the 12th of January of this year, the casks have been filled with Limerick whiskey, with the barley that has been grown in Limerick. And one hell of a challenge to grow it in Limerick, to be honest with you, because we're very open to the elements in Limerick. And there was a very, very bad storm in August of last year, and there was trees knocked all over the city and all over the suburbs. And I was there texting and calling the farmer and not getting a reply back. And I know he's a busy man, but my kind of thoughts were he just didn't want to tell me that the barley's all flattened. It'll look like a crop circle or something like that. But when we went there, it was completely fine, and there was a miracle. So yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. Things are happening. There's
your barley there. There's the first Limerick barley in quite a while, isn't it?
Well, it's the first malting barley, but this is the green barley. So this is the protein levels, and this were 12.5. Typically for malting, it's a 9.5. But what's really interesting, and later on, you'll probably get to taste a little bit of the new make. But what I have found is there's a really wonderful integration of the alcohol for something that's so young. It's not even in wood. It actually has this really interesting aromas of it. The only thing that I can really think about that it's similar to is a rum agricole. And if you ever have a rum agricole, it's made from the fruit juice the sugarcane juice of sugarcane, and it has this really grassy, herbaceous aromas. And I think it really captures that. And I think it's really down to the protein and the higher protein levels, but that doesn't lead to higher efficiency. So it's really interesting, kind of going back to the quality of the spirit versus the efficiency of yield. Tommy, thanks a million. It's good. Tommy's a good lad. Fair play.
There's lots of Limerick in the comments tonight. Mark Lloyd is wondering who your art teacher was.
Tom Short.
Tom Short.
Yeah. Pat Short's brother, if you know the comedian.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah. Spitting image
Small world.
each other. Yeah, absolutely.
Tommy Doyle says there are a few of those prints in a few local pubs around the city centre too that he's spotted.
Absolutely.
And Martin chancing his arm here saying, see all these distillers on here, but we don't get any special offers. Go out of that. You do. What did you get from 2 Stacks a few weeks ago? You got the cheapest whiskey you'll ever get in the world through your membership. Here's what we'll do for you, Martin. We promise not to charge you next week for the lock-in. You get a free lock-in next week instead. Let me see. Kieran Quinn, our friend in New Jersey, if Nick makes it, he'll drink it. And he has a few of your bottles. I've seen them on his shelves.
He's only from the village out from my mother's side of the family. I think he knows my uncle quite well. So it's a small world when we're chatting away. So it's a very, very small world.
You can't get away with anything in the world of Irish whiskey or anything related to Ireland. Everyone knows somebody or their cousin.
Oh, absolutely. You could be walking. Actually, everybody knows each other. That's it.
Everybody does. They do. Tell us the name Thomond Gate. So I spent a few years of my life living in Limerick, had a great time there. I'm very familiar with the area. But what does the name mean for those who may not be familiar with Thomond Gate?
Yeah. Well, back in the day, Limerick, and you might see when you walk around Limerick, it was a fortified city. And any fortified city has entrance and the entrance that was the most prominent one, which was the crossing of the Shannon, the River Shannon, and that was a strategic point. And you have King John's Castle on that point there, and it was the Thomond Gate. So the Kingdom of Thomond was, it was the O'Brien clan, the Brian Boru, that was his kingdom. And if you go out to Dromoland Castle, the Lord Inchi Quinn, the descendants of the O'Brien clan are still there to this day. But that was the crossing point of the most important crossing of the whole area. Because if you think about it, the Shannon it's a motorway, back in those days. And Limerick was an island, and it was fortified, and there was all these gates. So, and then eventually the suburb of Thomond Gate developed outside, which you will note is there's without the space. So the area of Thomond Gate is Thomond Gate, as in one word. The brand, we pay homage to the area, and then to the original distillery that was there, which was known as Thomond Gate, as in the gate and then the area. So it's really interesting, and the history around that whole part of Limerick is phenomenal. It just goes back all the way to the Vikings. It's unbelievable. Whenever
we hear in Ireland the word Thomond, you're typically hearing about Thomond Park and Munster Rugby, and that would be its most famous, the most famous landmark in Thomond Gate at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's only a short walk away from Thomond Gate itself, Thomond Park, and it is the cathedral of Ireland, of Limerick, and the religion is rugby. So I think we all pray there.
What was it? What year was it that Munster played New Zealand in Thomond Park? Jeez, 78 was it? 78, I think.
I know it was the birthday, the date of birth of my brother-in-law. That's the terrible thing now. I'm trying to recall it now.
31st of October, 1978, at Thomond Park. I was 1 month and 5 days old, and Munster beat the famous All Blacks, the best team in the world. And the joke that goes in Ireland is that it's a stadium that seats 25,000 people, but 3 million Irish claim to have been at the game that day.
Oh, completely. And I bet you it's all true.
It's all true. You sent me a very mysterious package.
Yeah, I did.
In the mail here, and you managed to get it through all kinds of customs very securely, very safely, and nothing dropped. I haven't opened even the outer packaging, so I have no idea what you've sent me. What should I do with this? What's your recommendation here now?
Well, open them up, I'd say it would be a good start, and have a little taste. So if you, I'm just thinking here, the best thing is to take a big glass of water, because you've got a lovely John's Lane on your palate already. So have a bit of water there, and then we'll go straight into the new make, because you know what, I think that's the there's no character of wood on that, so we don't want any influence of tannins that we might have had from other spirits that we had. I think my educational cap is coming on me there, but just a little swig of water will help.
While I'm trying furiously to open this package, maybe Mrs. Stories and Sips, could you help get me a glass of water? She's her headphones on over there, hidden away. She knows well sure. To. Where's my water? Here, let me grab my water here.
No worries. You should have a water, like, come on out.
I know this is amateur hour here for me.
No, don't worry.
All right. Okay, we're back.
Brilliant.
Water is forthcoming.
No worries.
Sorry, I frightened the life out of her.
Have a little swig.
Is they okay? Yeah, please. Okay, so I'm lining these up here now.
Yeah. So
okay.
The one that's water white and clear.
Water white and clear. Okay, so I have this one here. This is the.
Yeah, absolutely. So you won't need that much of it anyway, because that's fair, strong enough as it is.
Headphones okay. I got service, look, 5-star.
That's very, very, very kind of her.
Honest to God, what we put her through on a Friday night. She nearly left out of the chair.
Fair play to her.
All right.
Sorry to put you on the spot there, Barry.
No, you're grand. What kind of a tasting is it where I don't have a glass of water beside me? I normally do, but I forgot it.
Sure.
All right, so we got our little bit of new make spirit. So help our audience understand what new make spirit is, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. So new make is the spirit that has come off the still. This is a pot still Irish whiskey. The mash bill for this is a 60% green barley, 35% malt, and 5% oats. The green barley can give you some spice and real texture and oily mouthfeel. The oats, 5% it's a small amount really, but it's enough there to give a little bit of texture, but it's mostly the texture is going to come from the green barley. And then we have the malt, which is the source of our enzymes, our amylase enzymes, which will help to convert the starchy simple sugars. But anyway, it's whiskey before it becomes whiskey, as in before it goes into the wood, before it goes into the cask. But it's been cut, so it comes off the cask about 83, around that figure, and then it's cut down 63% because that's the optimal figure for filled into a cask, and then you're going to get the extraction of all the lovely wood character and flavors. So that's what new make is, and this is before it has ever touched any wood. So this is the character of the grain. So yeah. Okay,
is this the Limerick barley, or is this the first? This is your okay.
This is my new make. This is my mash bill. This is the stuff that kept me awake, and such a relief when I got into the glass. But when you smell it, if there is this really tropical nose to it, which I think is very interesting. It is a triple distilled pot still whiskey, and new make. But when you have the smell of this real herbaceous grassiness,
it's so herbaceous, earthy, grassy. Yeah. Oh.
And
moisture, like just a soft earth, like I can feel it in my hands.
Absolutely. So it's really, really interesting, and this is what gets me really excited, because I wish we had smell-o-vision for everybody, because
right.
But you can see it is quite viscous and oily. There is a real heavy kind of oiliness to the and when we're tasting this, I want you to pay attention to the texture and the mouthfeel, and how first of all, when you have a new make spirit, you're going to have obviously it hasn't oxidized, it hasn't had time to soften and mellow, which the cask does. So this in my opinion, is very drinkable as a new make. And I'm biased, but I'm really, really excited about it. What's the difference between new make and poitín? Poitín can be made from anything really. It can be made from molasses. It can be made from sugar. It can be made from sugar beet. Traditionally would have been grains, but it is very. You could sell this hypothetically as poitín. They're putting it. There's a lot more to poitín. Actually, interesting enough, poitín has to have a percentage of sourced Irish ingredients. I think 50% of it has to be Irish ingredients, which I think is actually really good. But anyway, that whiskey I don't believe has that restriction on it. No,
it doesn't. Patrick Miller, distiller and owner at Talnua Distillery, saying raw barley is heart. He loves it. I love the smell of raw barley of new make spirit as well, and raw barley. But it's the smell of being in a distillery, isn't it? It's the smell when it transports you to a place of distillation, of chrome, of stainless steel. When I not only just the herbaceous notes, but it gives me a sense of where it's being made.
And just kind of a tip for all the kind of viewers, when you're doing your tasting, keep your mouth slightly apart and allow the draw to come in and out. And that's going to allow you to get the full factor from the spirit. I think, Barry, you happy to have a little taste?
Let's do it. Sláinte. Cheers.
Now for 63%, that doesn't have this like a burn. I don't like, for me anyway, personally speaking. Again, I'm biased, but so
you've been drinking whiskey since 10 this morning. Your palate is anesthetized.
No, I do worry about my palate at times, because I do like my cask strength and my high strength spirits, but like everything, I like things in small quantities. So hence why big flavors, big bold character. But for me, the oils in that really help to take the sharpness and the edge away from that spirit. But again, the herbaceousness and the kind of a floral characteristic and kind of honeysuckle elements go into the palate as well. And I think it is a really, really interesting spirit for a new make. But I'd like to hear what's your thoughts, Barry, just getting a chance to taste it now.
Coats the mouth. It's all over my teeth. It's all over my tongue. It's all over my cheeks. It's it tingles, lovely tingling on the lips there. Obviously, that ABV doing its work. Umami, salty, a little bit of saltiness on the front of the palate, and then almost like a black licorice to me. I get a black licorice note on it.
Okay. So it's interesting you're saying the umami. So that most likely is a protein element, the higher protein levels. Again, I'm not a distiller. I'm only applying my knowledge of what I've kind of read and studied. But it has a 12.5% protein level in it, which would make it not really efficient for malting. But it gives this wonderful oiliness to it, and as you said, the unami character comes through. But I'm really excited about it, because what potential it has. It seems to be phenomenal, from my opinion. But again, time will
very
tell.
flavorful.
Yeah.
And what's the oat contribution? So oats, we know, would have played a role in whiskey historically, notoriously difficult to work with in large quantities during distilling. What notes should we look for when there's an oat component to whiskey?
Oats, they really help with the texture more so, and with the percentage that they are there, I really don't think you're going to get much on the nose from the. I think it's more adding to the mouthfeel and the texture. It's more the green barley. The 60% of this is green barley, and 35% is malt. So it's very much subtle in there. I personally don't think I can detect it on the nose, the oats, and I think if I was saying that, I think it might be lying. So that's my all honesty. But it's really what we're looking for is a texture on with oats. But again, hopefully in the future, the technical file changes so we can play around with higher oat percentages, and see how we get kind of character.
That salt that lives on, that saline, that it just from the protein it lives on, and there's kind of a medium finish to it, somewhere between dry and a kind of a sweetness, and there's a little tartness to it as well on the end of the palate.
It's it's good. And I was in like I'm excited about it, and we've got a number of casks that it's gone into. I've got a number of rye casks. I've actually probably quite a large percent of rye in versus bourbon, and we have PX and Oloroso casks as well. But it's interesting to see what characteristics can be taken from the wood, and also hopefully in time, when it all goes according to plan, when we get the bonded warehouse in Limerick, that's been delayed because of COVID, but we'll be able to get the effect of the humidity in Limerick. So that's something I'm really, really keen for.
That was something that you went into detail on in our podcast, and we talked about it quite a bit before we ever did the podcast probably 2 years ago now, or a year and a half ago. But you mentioned there's a unique microclimate around Shannon, the River Shannon, the biggest river in Ireland, that there is a different rate of maturation or a different maturation effect near the Shannon. Could you explain that a little bit to us? Because I was fascinated when you first told me that.
Well, there's a very good book here, and it's this gentleman, Alfred Bernard, wrote it, and he went around to all the distilleries around Ireland, and when he went to the distillery, to Thomond Gate Distillery, you can see the proximity there to the River Shannon itself. I'll just get that as close as I can. You can see how close it was. So this proximity to the water. Water is an amazing conductor. We all can agree. It carries heat, carries energy, etc. And the energy it's carrying is from the land and from the earth, as in coming from the surrounding area, from the rain, the runoff, and then you've got the Atlantic coming in. So the Shannon is tidal. The Shannon estuary, and all you have to do is go, be in Limerick for a day, or at the right time of the day, and you'll see it go up and down. And it'll get, that is a heat exchange, an exchange of hot water coming from the Gulf of Mexico, coming all the way up the estuary, and then cold water coming down off the land. And that is a heat exchange. And from my understanding, that heat exchange leads to a change in the environment. And if you ever look at Limerick on a frosty day, you'll see on the River Shannon a big kind of fog going all up the Shannon. That's all the humidity and the heat from the water. So all of that leads to higher humidity. And Frank McCourt in Angela's Ashes wrote about Limerick being one of the most pious cities, and the reason why we had all the churches not was because we really were pious, was because we were trying to get out of the rain, and it was the only place to get out of the rain. But all that humidity leads to damp cellars or damp environment. And that's something that's really, really important when it comes to maturation for the development of Rancio characters. So remember you said about those leathery tobacco kind of characteristics that, the workman's belt. That's Rancio. That's the development, and you get that in aged spirits. But in damp cellars, that is helped on a bit. So that develops these interesting characters. So this is what gets me excited about Limerick whiskey, and more so Limerick maturation. Because if you think about the distillery is a controlled environment, it's a sterile setup. You could bring your barley in and bring it out, but the yeast that's in there is inoculated, and it's a strain that's been used. It's not wild yeast or anything like that. So it's really the spirit and the spirit's interaction with the wood and the wood interaction with the environment that makes a whiskey what it is. And I think I said in the podcast in the past, the whiskey is the spirit going into the cask, and the cask itself is like a marriage, but the child is the whiskey itself. And I think that Limerick provides the right environment for that happy childhood, which leads to a well-rounded and well-matured whiskey. So that's
the best types of children. The best children.
Absolutely. But this book here mentions about Limerick's rapidly aging character too. So that's kind of put the seed in my head. Why is it? And what kind of gave me the indication was that when talking to people with the flood defense systems in Limerick, they said about how they had to replace all the seals because of the salt water and fresh water constant change all the time. And that kind of gave me an indication of that exchange of heat coming in and out. And that must have made a massive impact.
when I was interviewing Ned Gahan, who's in our audience tonight, Ned, head distiller at Waterford, he was talking about the impact of salt water and the salt in the air, where their Ballygarran warehouse in Waterford, County Waterford, where they mature their spirits, and the impact that the salt water in the air has on rusting the hoops and affecting the casks. It's got a real impact, this invisible impact that's happening minute by minute, second by second, every day, and has to, of course, affect the whiskey as well, which is fascinating.
Oh, definitely, and it's something that people forget, is that the maturation, the locations, the environment, and all we have to do is look at American whiskey and look at European aged whiskey in more damp environments, that the ABV in America goes up in the casks for those dry environments, where the damp environments in Ireland and Scotland, the ABV goes down. So that changes the extraction, the tannins, and everything like that of the casks. So it's just fascinating. What you get from just the environment alone, and that's magic.
What do you want me to taste next from this selection box, this magic selection box?
I think let us go for the one with. Is there a label on one of them there?
There is. Yeah. I got one here.
Yeah, that one there. So it's I'm not too sure. There you go. So that was part of the old label that was just chopped up, because I just thought it'd be nice to put on it. So, oh God, that reminds me, all the first bottles that were made, I hand filled in all the details. And I think that's one of the ones that I filled in.
Great handwriting. Lovely spider writing that you and a doctor are the only ones that can identify.
That's it. But I think that shows the authenticity, though, Barry.
It's real.
Really crafty writing.
So what, this was your first release, was it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So this is a cask which is still maturing. So 125 liters were drawn, and the rest was left to mature in the sherry butt. So it's well, I've kind of given it away, haven't I? For really doing a good job for a blind tasting. But anyway, this was kind of an experiment, and all was planned, and the bonded warehouse was all being put together, which was a small bonded setup to be able to monitor the control and the environment and so on of Limerick, and that was delayed due to the current environment we're in now, because no site visits were taking place with the excise and revenue. But we were at the final inspection back in March of 2020. So anyway, but they're doing a good job.
You got this. You had a few casks. You drew from each of them a portion to release, with the idea being that as that whiskey matures further, eventually when it gets to the Shannon, you'll be able to taste the impacts near the Shannon as the whiskey matures. So every release then would have, we talk about terroir, sense of place, the impact of place on its maturation. And so this is your. Would you count this as your control sample, or would this be?
Yeah, this is a control, but what I'm going to have to do is draw off some samples of it before it leaves to Limerick for those who have the custodians, so that they will have a new control, just so they can compare it, just a little bit for them to see that what it is like now. But the custodians were the people, and Kieran, I think you got one of the custodian bottles. I think you got it from a local priest or something like that.
Irish story.
The maddest origin of getting bottle. I'm going fair play, but anyhow, but yeah. So what was I saying? Yeah. So the whole idea is when I talk and train people about spirits, I do a tasting of a VS cognac, a VSOP, and an XO cognac, and that was kind of, I was like, but what am I tasting? Am I tasting the control? Or am I tasting am I tasting the blender's choices or the wood? So there was just too many variables, and I wanted to strip that all away and focus all on the individual spirit and being able to see what is actually happening with the wood and what's happening with the age and time. So that was the whole logic behind it. So Paul there, fair play. Paul is one of my absolute confidants and absolute, how do I say it, guardian angel at times, because the amount of times bounce things up, Paul, say he's great. Thank you.
Good man, Paul. Paul's a good, a regular visitor here to us. So, Sláinte Paul. Kieran supporting rural commerce there with trading with the priest, and Let me see. Richard Agnew says that, is it just me or is this the time to be a part of Irish whiskey? It 100% is. And we'll talk more about that throughout the evening, because there has never been more going on and more to pay attention to. And when I first started, in very recent, I'm only very new to the Irish whiskey world, about 4 years maybe. And when I first joined 4 years ago, you'd struggle to find one whiskey tasting a week or maybe even a month happening in Ireland. Now there are 3-4 a day happening online across Ireland and further afield, and it's amazing time to be part of it. Nick, this single pot still on the nose has the most, it's the most buttery caramel meeting a sherry, like somewhere between what noses like Oloroso to PX. There's that lovely mustiness coming from the barrel.
Absolutely. And that's something that I wanted, because with all these adverts and the one that you saw or showed earlier, the big, matured in sherry casks, and I was going, okay, what kind of sherry, and what would they have been like, and so this was the reason why this first one was a sherry Oloroso cask, and I just wanted something that would have been an homage to what would have been done in the past, and I'm just really pleased with the way this is for this is no smoke or mirrors here. This is a young spirit. This is a 3-year-old pot still. But it isn't anymore a 3-year-old. It's coming up to 5 now. So it's it's had plenty of time now to change and alter. But the idea was that this would be the control, and but for such a young spirit, the interesting thing about this is they will not make this type of pot still anymore. From my understanding, is because it's too heavy on the when you're on the setup. Having such a green component, I won't say as much the green component, but it's quite a significant amount in this. But it is a beautiful pot still, and not an easy one to make, from what I've been told.
And you're quite open about the fact that you're obviously sourcing your whiskey. You don't have a distillery yet.
No.
You've partnered with Great Northern Distillery to produce your whiskey for you.
Oh, absolutely. And Great Northern are make fantastic juice up there, and really great guys. So, simply put, I'm very pleased with it, and I'm very happy with working with them up there. So they go beyond the call of duty.
Any bourbon cask in this, or is it all sherry?
All sherry, completely sherry. So this has never been in any other wood versus a sherry butt. So this is going to be a sherry bomb. Really big sherry characteristics.
Amazing nose to it. Amazing nose. Yeah, best nose now I've nosed in quite a while. Love it. Yeah,
it's just really interesting. Really interesting.
Caramel, buttery, soft, buttery caramel meeting. Just a dark, musty glass of sherry. You can picture it.
And the thing is, there's only 100 of these bottles were ever done, and the bottles themselves were I don't say it was torture or a torture of love. I don't know how to describe it, but it took me 3 days alone to wrap the individual tubes. So I'll just grab one of these tubes here to show you. So all of them were hand wrapped. I think it might be those who've been following me on Instagram from the early days would have seen like boxes of these and literally double sticky tape and putting them all together, because I wanted a tube, and I rang up the guys saying I'd like tubes, and they said, how many do you want? I said, 100, and said, forget about it. They wouldn't even entertain me, but they were making some other tubes for somebody else and said, well, can I have the blank ones, please, before you wrap them? So I got the blank ones and I wrapped them. So I did it myself, and that was the story. And I applied the labels that go on the bottle on the outside and on the back, because again, when you work on a budget, but you know what? To be honest with you, it's something that I've kept on for future releases. And I think it actually is a lot more sustainable and a lot more better use of it. So I have a blank tube now. But the first ones were all done by myself, and all the bottles were hand filled by myself, and hand wax dipped, and the coins wrapped oh geez, it was. Yeah,
you were a broken man there on a few of the calls when we were talking to you. Like, how am I going to pull this all together? Like, there was so much to do. Yeah, and you were having a child at the same time.
Yes. So it was quite a heavy going, and my son was I think he was over a month. He was in there. He wasn't coming out, and anyway, he's out now. But actually, a bit of news to raise a glass to. I'm expecting my second.
Hey!
So Official in the
Sláinte.
world. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you,
That's
thank
great
you.
news.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
A new release. Hey.
Coming October of this year. So yeah.
Single cask. Hey.
Absolutely. Thank God, single cask. I think Omar got the double cask release from what I heard.
Double twins.
Yeah. Fair play. But
that's brilliant. Congratulations. That's great news.
Thank you very much. So let's have a taste. I think. So
on a high note.
And again, the texture, the mouthfeel, and the spiciness, and it's just really, really, really fruity, spicy, and again, it's a young spirit. There's a little bit of a warmth there, but it's not a burn. It's not a burn, which is something that you'd expect from a young spirit, and it just is very smooth going down. But again, this is a pot still mash bill, which I just wish I had more of. To be honest with you, it's exceptionally good stuff.
Nick, do you know what this reminds me of instantly? As soon as it touches my tongue, my palate, is the old 1960s sherried pot still releases, the old Bow Street, the old John's Lane. There's a wonderful mustiness that comes from those old sherry casks that just it instantly transports me to a whiskey from the 50s or 60s. Instantly.
It's interesting, isn't it? And that's a 3-year-old whiskey.
So much pepper, so much spice on the palate. But that, what's the note? How would you describe that sherry note? It's a kind of it's a
there's like a honeycomb character to it. I think this it's a honeycomb. When there's, I always be cautious about using sugar or sweetness on but as in but there's almost you get that kind of fermented fruits kind of character as well. But it's hard to kind of put sometimes flavors into words at times. But the one thing is I want to make sure it's absolutely pleasurable.
Yeah. Fermented fruits is a great note, and I'm always dying to hear people's notes. Like, what do you get? Because I'm only looking for the thing that connects it for me. Because, my palate still isn't there to be able to go, fermented fruits or the outboard fumes of an outboard motor engine. Like I'm not getting it instantly, but that's the isn't that the great myth about Irish whiskey, that it has to be 10 years old, it has to be 20 years old?
This is it. Like, it is a chemical process, and not to remove some of the magic, but they're good spirit going in, a good selection of a cask, you can get very good results. And when it comes to quality is not determined by the amount of time a liquid sits in the cask. It's the same about productivity. Think about it. If I sit at my desk all day long and twiddle my thumbs, does it make me a hard worker? Or if I get on and focus and get my work done? So that's the thing about good spirit, is that it's being productive and it's getting the character that it needs, and that we're getting a good result fairly quickly. But again, this is still maturing. This is still evolving, and this is only the control. So all the custodians who have one of these bottles are entitled to the next releases when they do come. So
amazing.
It's just the whole thing with me when the custodians was a way of crowdfunding initially for what is the brand today, and that there would be a little bit of a tribe, a club, and that we'd come together, and I've met some amazing people through that, and that's it wouldn't be for everybody initially, as in like they may not have taken an interest, but it's been great.
This is it's my first time now tasting your whiskey. We've been chatting for 3 years. I think there was a bottle somewhere that we wanted to make sure somebody in Limerick or Tipperary got hold of for their bar, which was great. But I was dying to try it, and now finally getting to try it, I'm really, really impressed by the flavors, the profile, the what it's reminding me of. And I think that anytime somebody says a whiskey is too young, it's because they're tasting something that perhaps has been produced in a way that they don't like the finished product, not because of its age, but just because of how it was produced, because we've all had tremendously bad 30-year-old whiskies and tremendously good 3-year-old whiskies.
That's it.
And it's down to production, isn't it?
Well, think about it. When you cook your steak, you don't want it overcooked, do you? You want it medium rare. So that's kind of like a medium rare
Yeah.
whiskey there.
There's some chancer.
I know, again, it's their whiskey is for horses for courses. Laura, thanks a million. I have to say, she likes the old tubes, so thanks a million for that.
Very impressed. Really enjoying this. Going to save this last drop for later myself, but well done on that.
Thank you.
That's a great start. Because it is only the start, it's great to start from such a high. So it can only improve and evolve and get even more complex.
Absolutely. And one thing I know that a lot of the bottles are still sealed at the moment, but I kind of think that that's not a bad thing for those who are coming on the journey with me, because when I do want them to open them all up, but then I want them to be able to analyze and debate, to kind of go. So that's something that it's going to be, we're all going to be a bit older, a little bit wiser, a little bit grayer, and a little bit uglier. But, sure. That, or maybe hopefully we'll age well like whiskey. But it'll be good fun. That's the whole thing is about.
That's what it's about, isn't it? Yeah, it should be. It should be.
So,
what have we got next?
We'll go for blue.
Blue,
please. Yeah.
All right, not to be confused with Blue Spot. This is Blue Gate.
Yeah. True. I'm sure it's a clever system of coloring. I think they knew what they were on anyway back in the day. Just whack a bit of paint on the barrel, and I'm doing it with a little plastic little tub there.
Okay, so I've got my little. This is a sample of blue, light straw color.
They probably thought they were urine samples on the way to you or something like that.
That's probably why they got through. They didn't want to touch them.
Yeah, I bet. So if that one now, when you look at a spirit like this, what I kind of want to see what you're getting on the nose here. I'm kind of going on leading questions, but is it earthy or is it fresh or is it floral? Or is it spicy? What kind of notes are you getting on the nose?
Black tea.
Black tea. That's a good one.
Black tea was the first just gut reaction. Then it makes way for sweetness. It's like the sugar that goes with the tea appears a little bit behind it.
Okay.
And I'm getting some of those nutty notes of a European oak cask, I think, coming through to me.
Yeah.
A little bit of dark fruit showing itself. A prune note showing itself.
Very good. So,
go ahead.
Yeah. So, any guess of what the cask is by chance?
So this is it's an Oloroso sherry cask.
No? A little bit off, no, but it is a grape. There's a grape character there, so that you're probably getting thrown off by that.
Okay.
This is, I'll tell you now, but I'm going to ask you a question. Do you get a dried floral element on this now? And anybody who's done the courses with myself in the past, they'll probably know what I'm on about now. But there's a little bit of a floral element there, but it's more of this like lilac and lavender kind of aromas, and a little bit of burnt sugar.
Okay. So is a little fortified wine?
It is a spirit, but it is a cognac. So it's a VS cognac. So VS cognac. Well, no, you're still in the same area. It's fruits. You're not saying it's a beer finish, or you're not saying it's but the aromas, you got to remember that they are being paired up with a malt grain. So things evolve and change. So don't be thinking too hard on yourself that you didn't get that now. But with this one here now, there's a wonderful aromas of it. And what I really like about cognac is that the Uni Blanc grape, this kind of acidic grape that wouldn't really make any good table wine, but it makes fantastic distillate, this eau de vie. So when you mature, actually, and also that there's a great thought process that goes into the cask selection for cognac. The whole natural seasoning of the wood, leaving it in the open for 2 years and everything like that removes a lot of the tannin character. But again, a BS Cognac is going to be a 2-year-old distillate that's in the cask. So we're getting all this bright kind of characters in there. So you were spot on with the fruits and those kind of characters you were getting.
French oak then. So French oak from and the French oak is kind of state controlled, isn't it? In France, they make sure that there's enough supply. They're on top of the growth and their forests.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's something I wish that was there'd be more of those kind of oak forests in Ireland. It would be amazing if we had them, but you go over there and they have these just acres and acres and acres of an insurance policy for war that they were hoping to build ships out of. So it's amazing, but thank God they make them out of steel. Otherwise, we wouldn't have these amazing casks. Spot on, Conor. You got that one right. So Conor,
Slaunch, we take a sip there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Taking our sip of this.
I wish we ever had a glass for everybody else in the audience. Just join in on this, experience. I guess or tasting. It's nice to do it.
This now is it's sharper. It's more. It's presenting itself in a more solid. I'm here.
Yeah.
Pay attention to me.
Yeah.
Robust way. Yeah. There's a. What am I getting? Little hint of melon coming through to me.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm getting a lovely sweetness. There's a lovely caramel meeting.
Yeah.
Honey sweetness.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's kind of there is almost that hint of that little fermented fruit. Little bit of it. Feels like there's a little bit of it on the back of my palate.
Absolutely. So I like that you said about the kind of burnt sugar, kind of caramel, kind of aromas there.
Yeah.
So with Uni Blanc, the Cognac, because they have by law they have to use direct heat, so a naked flame. So the likes when we see in Brendan Cologne and the Burn Distillery and Corey Distillery, that these guys are using direct heat, that gives a Maillard reaction and gives this kind of butterscotch and kind of burnt sugar aroma, so that brown sugars. So it's really, really lovely to get that character coming across, because we don't have that direct heat from the spirit that we're sourcing. So
what's this whiskey? Is this a whiskey that's already bottled, released, or
yeah? This is Galloping Hogan. So Galloping Hogan is a gentleman who was a hero of Limerick. And he was from Doon, a village where my mother comes from, and only a bit out the road to Kappa White is where Kieran comes from. So that's the homage to the Galloping Hogan, and he basically helped defend Limerick, and he blew up a siege train that was coming from Dublin to breach the walls of Limerick. So it helped to defend the city, and he fought on for another additional 6 months after the signing of the Treaty of Limerick. So again, and he then went on to France and served in the French army. So hence the Cognac cask, and the French helped defend Limerick as well against William of Orange. So it's quite cool to tie in the history in with the spirit and the expression. So that's kind of what I like to do. Bit of a history buff, and I like to kind of tell these kind of untold stories, or maybe make them more aware to those who may not have heard about them before. So that's kind of what I try to do, and that's why I went for a Cognac cask, was to tie in that link. But he went on to France and served with the French army with the Irish battalions abroad, the wild geese, as they say.
I love the story, I love the history, I love the tie-ins, I love the local connections. I know so many others do as well. If you're just joining us, I'm here with Nick Ryan, founder of Thomond Gate Whiskey. Richard says, I don't know when you're getting to the Dunvilles and all the rest, but this is a great conversation. Keep her lit. We're poor Conor sitting in the background from Irish Whiskey app as well, wondering when's his chance.
You should bring him in. I think you get a glass and just.
Conor, get a glass.
I think he's got
Find
some
yourself
bottles
something.
behind. I'm sure he has one or two of my bottles with the amount of bottles he has behind him anyway.
Right. If Conor has that, we'll bring him on as well. If he has something from you, if not, just join anyway.
There you go.
We're going through a whole pile of samples that Nick sent over, and it's a great way to actually connect with the stories and with the whiskies and with what Nick is doing, because there will be more releases, and you're also. Is there something? There was a question earlier about whether Thomond Gate whiskey is available yet in the US. Talk to us about that.
So there is plans in the works. There's a member of your group. I won't say any names. Just we're in discussions and we're trying to make that happen. So it will be one of the liquids that you have there in front of you.
Okay.
So we will get to that and we will taste that. But I'm very excited about this because it's a significant milestone for myself, for entering a new market and sharing a bit of the stories of Limerick to those who are based out in the West Coast. So giving more hints there. And
we'll share more details when Nick has more to share about what's coming to the United States. We'll share it in our Facebook group as well, and maybe we'll get to taste some of that whiskey as well. Speaking of Galloping Hogan, we're galloping through the whiskies at pace tonight.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Conor is ready to go there. He's in the background with a thirst on him like no man has ever had a thirst before. Conor from Irish Whiskey app, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Good evening, Barry. Good evening, Nick. And Nick, congratulations. Wonderful news.
Thank you very much. I should pick up another glass.
Isn't it? Another sláinte. We deserves another one.
Thank you very much, lads. It's actually probably the first I've shared with the news with all of you. So I've been talking to very little people. So I'm glad to share it all with yourselves.
Conor, you are normally sitting in the background in the audience on Facebook, typing in comments and furiously supporting us in the background there on a Friday night. But you're now for the first time on the camera. And that is some selection of drinks and wines and whiskies behind you that we never got to see when we just saw your name in the comments. But is that what it takes to build an Irish whiskey app? You need to have one entire wall of your house covered in spirits.
Well, I tell you what happens is when it's a bit like Netflix, when you're trying to decide what to watch on Netflix and you're just browsing and you find 20 minutes later you've flicked around and you haven't picked anything. And so that happens to me when I go to drink a whiskey and I think, on a Friday night for the lock-in, what am I going to have? And I stand in front of this thing and I need something to help me. So I figured I know software. Maybe I could build an app that would pick the whiskey for me. And so here we are. But it's amazing to be here. A year and 2 months or so later, I've been on the couch over there, firing comments, trying to get my name up on the screen, trying to get involved. So I finally broke through, and all it took was spending 9 months building an app.
And that's a good lesson for anybody. If you want to appear on the lock-in, just take 9 months, build an app, shoot us an email, and we'll get you on here really quickly. A lot of people are already familiar with Irish Whiskey app because you've been doing the rounds over the past few weeks, sharing details of this new digital release. And somebody put in the comments earlier that this seems to be the best time to be involved in Irish Whiskey. And I would argue that the arrival and the fact that an audience perhaps can support, there is an audience to support the likes of an Irish Whiskey app, tells us an awful lot about the state of the Irish whiskey world today, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely. And certainly for me, it's really felt like the absolute ideal time to be involved in this industry and to bring what, to be honest, I've been watching the show and I feel a little bit like a Luddite listening to, the conversation. And I've met Nick before and he's so knowledgeable. I find it incredibly fascinating, incredibly interesting to listen to the likes of Nick and yourself, Barry. And I don't know a quarter of what you guys know, even less about whiskey, but I know software. And I love Irish whiskey. I love the stories. I love the people. I love the community. And really, this app became, how can I get involved in this? How can I do something that contributes to this world, to this community, and bring other people on the sort of journey that I've been on? So for me, it's the absolute best time to be involved in it. But I think, for anybody, this industry is growing massively, and it's still at a point, and I hope it remains like this for a long time, that absolutely everybody you meet, they're the nicest people you'll ever meet, and everybody wants to help. Everybody wants to talk to you. Everybody wants to tell their story and hear your story. It's incredible. I feel like, as a kid, when you're watching football or basketball, and you're watching these teams and you look up to them and you idolize them. I feel a bit like that, but everybody in the whiskey community that I look up to and I reach out to, they want to talk to you, and they want to share. They want to hear your story, tell their story. It's incredible.
It's a great community, isn't it? It's I always say that you could take away the whiskey, just leave me the community, and I'll be 90% happy. I won't be 100% happy, but I'll be 90% happy. Such is the strength of the community. And yeah, so look, we all connected over whiskey, and that's the beauty of it. And I'm looking forward to the days when these connections that were made virtually and digitally over a strange 18 months will turn into in-person 3 a.m. drinks and messy pints and great stories to be told from live sessions.
Absolutely. I can't wait. I made a promise on Instagram last week, I think it was, that whenever we get to have a real launch party for this app, we'll do it here, and we can crack into the 400 or so Irish whiskies behind me, and I'd say we'll have a hell of a party.
There's a lot of people now who have heard that comment, will remember that comment. It's like, you'd hear the stories years ago of an American tourist that might visit Ireland, and they'd say, to the barman, if you're ever in Minnesota, give us a call, and they give them a card. And then 2 weeks later, the barman turns up on their door, looking for a place to stay. That'll be the case now with hundreds of people turning up on your door looking for your 400 bottles of whiskey.
I better stop tagging my location in my Instagram post. So.
That's right. The Irish Whiskey app is available on the App Store for Apple and Android on Google Play. And we still have we have a lot of whiskies to get through. This is going to be some night tonight. We've a couple of more from Nick to get through. We have our Dunville's 1808 to get through. But before we move on to the next whiskey, I'm curious to know, why did you go to the trouble of building an app for your passion? Like, was there what precipitated the moment where you said, okay, we need an app now? Something has got to the point of needing an app. What was that?
Yeah, so my great interests and passion in life, outside of my kids who are thankfully asleep and can't hear me, are software, and over the last couple of years, whiskey. And so the opportunity to bring those two things together kind of presented itself, I would say, just over a year ago. And I'm only really on, maybe my second year of this whiskey journey. So about a year ago, I had, when the lockdown started, I had found myself organizing online tastings for my friends, and wanting to be able to kind of share those experiences of what sort of tastes you should find in a whiskey, what's interesting about it, the different cask finishes, the different ABVs and so on. And I actually remember at the time that one of the ones I did was for Knappogue Castle. And I did 3 of their single malts, and I brought some of my friends through them. And I actually posted a screenshot of the presentation I'd put together onto the Irish Whiskey Fans of America group. And somebody corrected one of my points on it. And I was like, this is brilliant. Like, you cannot stop learning. Like, there's just, I thought I knew that, and I didn't. And now I know more. And I find that incredible. But I could see that, the people I was doing these sessions with, my friends, my family and stuff, were loving it too. And so it kind of became another obsession of, like, how can I make this better, and how can I make this more accessible to more people? And it was interesting a couple of days ago, as we added some of the Knappogue Castle whiskies into the app, and I look back on the slide I had put together for that tasting a year ago, and it kind of had a light bulb moment when I built an app around that experience of seeing people get knowledge, absorb knowledge, seeing people understand and learn how to taste whiskey and enjoy it in a whole different way, learning a little bit of history about the brand, the locations, and so on. So it was a really nice moment a few days ago to see the Knappogue Castle content go in and get that. Wow, a year on, I've built something, and it's not just me. There's David, who does all the design, the UX, was on that tasting that I did in the Pope Castle, and Mark, another friend of mine who works on the Android app. But we built something that last night we had 1,400 people using it, which was mind blowing to me. From the tasting with I think there was 3 or 4 of my friends that we did. That was kind of what really inspired me to build something like this. To have 1,400 people last night using the app was just incredible. And we're only a month old.
I mean, what I'm most looking forward to is the commission checks that are coming through to me from the Irish Whiskey Fans America group input. That's going to be a big day for me personally, so I'm very thankful for that. I know I'm thrilled to see that so many people are getting involved and engaging. And you're dead right when you there's a helpful community out there that's only too ready to correct you, help you, point you in the right direction, tell you, I don't know, I think that's a 3-year-old, not a 4-year-old. But there's a group of them out there that are great and will help. And that's great to see. A beautiful app, a beautiful design, beautifully put together, lovely little Easter egg of features and little, you pull down little screens and bigger photos appear. And there's lovely little features that I think we've been trained to look for now with apps and with UX, and you've very cleverly put them in there. And it's, I think it can only grow and evolve, and I'd say you'll have your hands full, will you, with every release, having to buy a bottle of whiskey, get all the details up on it. You'll be a broken man by the end of it. It's a tough life.
It's a tough life, and of course you have to taste them. So,
well, Conor, you need to request a sample to be put on the app. That could be a good little thing that has to be done, I guess.
Funny you should say that, Nick.
Gladly, Conor, gladly.
It's great fun, when you're into things like this, and I love this lock-in. I, as Barry knows, I join it pretty much every week. But being able to shoot Barry an email yesterday and go, do you know what? I'm after putting Stories and Sips lock-in on the homepage of the app. And I put in the 3 whiskies that you're tasting, because I thought it would be a really fun thing to do. Raise awareness of the lock-in, but also give people a nice way of the whiskies that we're talking about. They can open the app and it's right there on the homepage to see the details and stuff. And then today, chatting to Nick, I pinged Nick a message and said, look, I'd love to get the Thomond Gate whiskies in there, and we had a frantic few hours there. Before the lock-in, but we got the 3 in, and so if you go to that Stories and Sips tile on the homepage of the app, you'll see the Thomond Gate whiskies as well, and learn some really interesting things. I love that. Again, what I kind of mentioned earlier, the accessibility of the community and people wanting to help and wanting to share their stories. And there was even little facts in there, Nick. One that you gave me around one of the releases, that it has 300 on the label. It says there was 300 bottles, but in fact, when you went to bottle them, there was only enough for 288. And I just love that sort of thing, of being able to give that information to people. I think it's incredible.
No. That's the kind of stuff I want to give as well. And I think that's what's a great thing about what you've created, because to get that clarity and that official clarity about those releases. So fair play.
It's it's really lovely. All right, it's I was playing around with it, I was trying to catch it out the other night. I was like, I'll scan something now. He'll never get this tin of beans. No, to be fair, it didn't scan the tin of beans. But it does pick up on most of the bottles. I'd imagine it's an awful process to try and figure out how are you going to get hold of, if your part of the app is about building collections, how do you ensure that all of those whiskies to put into the collections are in the app to begin with? Is that a huge hill to climb?
It is, and I see some users get frustrated already, and you see some comments and you get some feedback around, it's missing such and such a brand, and I feel that too. Right, so you really need to look behind me. And part of the reason I built the app was because I wanted to have something for my collection and be able to build tools around that. But it takes time, right? And unfortunately, this isn't my full-time job. I would love it to be, but I work full-time during the day. So do the other 2 guys who are working on this with me. So it's every single spare moment we have, we're working on it, trying to get details, trying to get the scanner working for particular bottles and have them in there. So what I'd say is, keep the faith and stick with us, because we want to get all that in there. It is going to take a bit of time. It's a very laborious process, particularly when it comes to the bottle scanner and being able to have the phone recognize something, through the camera. But when it works, it's very cool.
Is it something you're looking for, Conor, that you want the public and those who download it to be sharing the feedback, be sharing what they find, what they want? Does that give you your snag list and your to-do list?
100%, and particularly when it comes to the bottles that people want to see in there that aren't there yet. So, we have a feature. To be honest, I think we need to make it a little bit more visible. But in the settings part of the app, you can hit a button there that says, add content and tell us what bottles you want us to add. And so, we've been working through that. And what I'm trying to do is email people afterwards and say, hey, that bottle that you were looking for, we've just added today. So absolutely, particularly the bottles that you think should be there that aren't, let us know and we'll get them in, we'll prioritize them. But other features that you're interested in too, it's something we really want to build and we want to grow. But to do that, it does require the users and the whiskey drinkers out there to tell us what they want to see in an app like this. I think we've a lot of the basics covered now, but there's so much more we could do.
It's the wine lovers will be familiar with the Vivino app, and I know you're probably inspired by its success and its global domination. There's hallmarks of its inspiration in terms of the UX here. Would I be right?
Yeah, for sure. And when we started building this, I was so reticent to say it's like a Vivino for Irish whiskey. But now that's what I use to describe it pretty much in every conversation, because it is at its most base level, it's very similar to Vivino. A lot of design cues from Vivino, even functionality cues like the scanner. Though I will say I've tested the Vivino scanner side by side with ours, and ours is much faster, much more accurate when it comes to whiskey. But Vivino's made for wine, so we were probably always going to win that one.
Very good. Brilliant. There is people in our audience who are very keen to hear about this new whiskey. This is, I don't think you have it in Ireland yet, Dunville's 1808. So let me, if you would indulge me and allow me a moment to talk about this really quickly. I'm going to do a little sip and a little tasting of this. Dunville's is a resurrected brand, and it is has been resurrected by Ecklinville Distillery. And up until now, most of their releases have been fairly sought after single cask, single malts, some other single malts that have made their way around the world. But this is the first time that they've released a blended, maybe a lower price, more approachable release that is quite unique and actually I think a welcome addition to the line of Dunville's, because it allows you to get in at $24.99, which is madness. I don't think there's a whiskey in Ireland that's available for $24.99. But this is it's a blended whiskey, and it's a blend of all three styles of Irish whiskey. So you'll be familiar with that approach with the likes of Tullamore Dew, Paddy, all have their three styles of Irish whiskey there, but this one's also got something a little bit different. It's got some peated malt in there as well as the single grain and the single pot still. Super light color, look, very strawy color. I'm going to pour a drop of it here. I picked this up last week, and it's available exclusively at the moment from Total Wine and More in the United States, which is the exclusive retailer for Ecklinville for Dunville's in the United States. I think this is coming to Ireland very soon, to the best of my knowledge. But I've long maintained that the Ecklinville bottlings, the Dunville's brand, their labels, their bottle design are probably the most beautiful of all Irish whiskies that have been released, and the detail is just incredible on this.
They are beautiful.
Look at that. And here we have, is that Bittles Bar in there we go. 1808, referring to the year when Dunville's was first, the distillery was first opened in Belfast in 1808. What was the name of that distillery? The Royal Distilleries lost it. It's in my head. In any case, the distillery at its peak was one of the, was shifting a lot of whiskey around the world, and closed its doors in the 1930s and never opened again. Closed while it was profitable, and had no way to stay open. There was no line of succession in the business, and they decided to close the doors, and that was the end of it. and it would take another 80 years before Ecklinville took that brand and decided to resurrect it. There's a first in this, in that this is the first time that some of Ecklinville's own whiskey from barley grown on their estate has ended up inside this whiskey. So there's pot still spirit from the Ecklinville estate that has made its way into this. Here's the color. Light straw color. And the peat component is in the single digits here. Those of you who are familiar with Two Stacks from our lock-in a few weeks ago, there was a 2%, 2% peated malt in this. And we know that gives it, it does present itself. Even in the small single digits, you still get that peat note. And it's unmistakable on the nose here. But it's not overpowering. It lives very much side by side with a kind of a sweet honey note. Bottled at 40%, ex-bourbon casks, 100% bourbon casks, ex-bourbon casks. And it's there's a light sweetness, a light peat on the nose. More peat on the palate. It's more present on the palate. It leads with a little bit of smoke. And then it kind of dips back, and that's some of that American oak sweetness, some of that vanilla come through. A little bit of honey, a little bit of spice, that pot still spice showing itself as well. $24.99, you can't go wrong. Whether you drink it neat, whether you make it into a cocktail, honestly, this now is a great addition. And there can be snobbery in the world of whiskey. We can think that blended whiskies at 40% in American ex-bourbon casks, sure, listen, that's only entry level. I'd argue that, I'd make the case that the most Irish whiskey sold in the world are bottled at 40% blended whiskies, bourbon and sherry casks. So this is a great addition, and it allows people to get into the Dunville's line of whiskies and maybe climb up the ladder to find more that they might like if they find that they like this one. So I recommend giving it a try. It's a lovely addition. You won't lose much money if you don't like it, but I think it's a nice little sipper. I actually put some ginger beer into it earlier, and I liked the spice of the ginger beer and the spice of the pot still together, made for a very lively cocktail altogether. So anyway, Sláinte to those of you who are drinking along with the 1808.
Barry, do you know when that's in Ireland? Or will it be in Ireland, that one?
My understanding is that it's later in the year.
Looking forward to it. Let
me see if it's in the comments here, because I know some of the lads from the distillery were on here earlier. No, I know there's a tasting coming in Ireland, I think with Talk Dram soon, where they're sampling the 1808. So I think it's coming later on in the year. But right now it's kind of a US only release and a Total Wine release only in the US. But nice little sipper, light, fruity, a little bit of pear, a little bit of spice, a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of honey, and then a little hint of smoke coming through. Nice to try, and a lovely way to try the three different styles of Irish whiskey all in the one bottle. So give it a shot. All right, so let's get back to you lads. Jesus, and we'll keep sipping on this in the meantime, and we'll talk about it. And if anybody else has it, let me know what you think. Richard Agnew says, "There's that feckin' slurpy noise again." What slurpy noise? He keeps hearing noises. Is anybody else hearing noises from my microphone, or is it just Richard? Richard might have you tinnitus or something? If anyone else is hearing wild noises, let me know. But I don't hear them on my side. Do you guys hear them? No? No? Is it my slurping?
I don't know, but maybe it's me. I don't know.
I'm not sure. Richard, is there somebody else? Has somebody invaded your house and slurping behind you? Nick, let's move on to, I want to move on to some of these other whiskies as well. I want to hear about them. I've got two colors. Nobody else is hearing that noise. Kieran only hears an empty glass noise. A familiar sound at a lock-in. What have we got left? We've got red and green.
We've got red and green. So, yeah, we go for green. Green for Limerick. Why not? Well, actually, red is for Limerick as well. Like, it depends on whether you have the city or the county logo. Anyway. Go for the green.
Going for the green. Okay,
and then
great.
Go for the red. We'll finish with the Cork colours. So, you'd be happy then.
Okay, Steve has said, "It's me sucking the whiskey after I put a drop in my mouth. I will put myself on mute lest you hear my enjoyment and join in participate in my enjoyment for even a second longer, and that'll solve it. All right, we're going for green.
Please do. And Conor, if you have one of the bottles open, it's the black mark one.
And Conor, that is one of this question that has come up here while I'm pouring this is one of the biggest questions, and it's a huge challenge, and it's something that probably deserves another conversation. But the United States is a very complex land for sourcing and finding the whiskies that you want, and sometimes even the distributor themselves can't tell you where the whiskies are. That's not something that's part of the app, obviously, right now.
Correct. Yeah, it's not. But that's exactly the sort of feedback that, we're looking for. Not that we'll go out tomorrow and build such a thing, but if there's a demand for that, then it's certainly something that would make sense in the app and something we would look to, could we do it? And maybe it would be possible, maybe it wouldn't be possible. So, at the moment we have a purchase option in the app for any whiskies that are available on Irish malts. And that's as close as we get to it. Now, luckily, Irish malts have a great selection and they do ship to a lot of locations, but it's not necessarily the same. We did some surveys on beta customers and early users as well. And one of the main reasons that people wouldn't buy whiskey via the app or via Irish malts that way is people love going into a store and seeing the physical bottle and buying the physical bottle. So I can see how that would be something that would fit well in the app, but it's not there today.
It's a huge undertaking for the United States. We've looked into it at Stories and Sips because the Facebook community, the group, is an amazing test, not a test market, but rather it's a user review group. It's a great sampling of what people actually want. And you hear all the time, like the biggest question is, where can I find this? Where can I find that? And it never fails to surprise me how many brands come to America and aren't able to answer the question about where their whiskey is going to be. It mysteriously disappears. They hand it off to a distributor and then it ends up in some retailers and nobody has any clue. And they say, well, in 6 months' time, we might have a map on our site. We might not. And I think that the first thing they should do when they come to the US is say, here's where we're going to be. And here's where I want you to go. And it would save an awful lot of trouble. And it could only help sales. But yeah, finding the whiskies is, it's a full-time job. It's a great job, though. Okay, so we'll come back to that. Green, I have here.
Oh yeah,
green.
Sorry, I forgot. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
We're jumping around the place tonight, and I promise.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I've probably been chatting too much earlier. That's the only problem. We have this one, and we'll assess it on the nose. And I'll be curious. Actually, do you got this one, Conor, by chance? I think
I do. Yeah, I'm just I'm opening it now.
Oh, you're open. Well, I hope I'm not forcing your arm now opening that bottle. So
this feels like a good occasion to open it.
Hey,
well, yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Well, and to keep it out of sight so Barry can't get any clues. Okay. On the nose. On the nose. When you're looking at this, I want you to think: is it bright or is it dark? Like as you said before, with the contrast of and you see spirits in color. I think that's a great way of describing things because we can't really describe aromas and flavors as in physically in words so clearly. So colors is a great example. But on the nose here, are you getting more a dark or a bright?
That's a great question. Now this one now is I'm getting bright.
Okay.
I'm getting bright.
Yeah. There's and that's most likely coming from the original cask that this was in. So you're getting those big vanilla characteristics, which is telltale sign of ex-bourbon. And ex-bourbon casks are going to also have these kind of vanilla, as well as kind of butterscotch and coconut and a bit of spice coming through. But this is, I'm going to just say it anyway because we might as well enjoy this anyway. This is a pot still Irish whiskey, and this is actually a really unique one because this is actually the first ever collaboration with a local brewery in Limerick. So this is from the Treaty City Brewery, who are based in Nicholas Street in Limerick. They also have one out in the Childers Road. So the two breweries, but their smaller one where they matured this was right in the heart of the island in Limerick, only a stone's throw from Thomond Gate. So it's a really beautiful cask. And this was actually originally an Exporto red wine cask that they had held Imperial Stout, which is brewed to a high strength 8%. And traditionally, these beers were exported to Russia because hence Imperial Stout, Russian Imperial Stout. And I think we'll go to, on the nose, we're getting this kind of, as well as all the bright vanilla, but also underneath that, there's a little kind of coffee and kind of dark chocolate kind of aromas there that sit beneath that. And then you also have the spice, and there's a little bit of an orchard fruit character as well. There's kind of like that apple character as well. That really is just very, very pleasant and very welcoming. Again, the Imperial Stout has that kind of, you're getting that kind of more darker kind of espresso kind of dark characters coming through, and a little bit kind of molasses-y kind of characters as well. But yeah, there's a lot of going on there. But
there's a lot, isn't there? That's a lot of flavor. Imperial Stout, pot still whiskey, wine, Exporto wine casks.
Yeah, for holding the Imperial Stout for 3 years.
Yep.
So there's a lot going on here, as in of all the casks that's going on. But anyway, I think we'll put a bit on the palate because that'll stop me from talking.
Let's do it.
There's that noise again, Barry.
I've decided to force it onto people now that if you're going to participate in my lock-in, you'll put up with my slurps. That's it.
Why not?
And this is a community. It's a dictatorship dressed up as a community. I hope you realize that if I want to slurp, I'll slurp.
Sure, it's all enjoying it. You're enjoying it, and that's all that matters. But this one here now, the texture again is something I want you to pay attention to this with the way it coats the mouth, really oiliness and the viscosity of it. And I'm not too sure if you can see it on my glass, but I'll just make sure I can get that a bit more clearer. But there is a really heavy oiliness to the spirit as well. So again, that oily element is going to help with the texture and the mouthfeel, and it just coats it. I like to describe spirits a bit like shards of glass. And it sounds a bit funny when you think about shards of glass coming off as something that's not going to be very pleasant. But when shards of glass is rolled in the ocean, that's kind of what happens with the cask. It oxidizes and takes those sharp edges off and makes it that bit more palatable and more easier to enjoy. And this spirit really does have that. It just really is. It works really well on the palate. And it just really is enjoyable. You can just chew on it really, or slurp on away on it, whichever you like. But it's very enjoyable for my. I was very pleased with that, and this was 6 weeks actually more than 6 weeks. Sorry, it was near 8 weeks, I think, in an Imperial Stout cask. So we were just at the end of August, early September. We disgorged the cask, which had the Imperial Stout, and then we filled it with the pot still. So we just wanted a little bit of the character. But I've actually was so pleased with the cask, I've refilled it and I've left it for a longer period of time over the winter. So we will see this cask number show up again on the bottle. But you'll notice batch number will be different, but it's something that I'm really, really, really happy about.
I think I have a picture of the bottle here. I'll pull it up. This is the most peppery of any of them that I've tasted so far. There's a heavy white pepper note on this palate for me.
It's very Moorish for my palate anyway, but it's like I just want to have a bit more, and I really enjoy it, and I'm very pleased with how it turned out. But this one is called Peter Lacy, and Peter Lacy, again, another hero or praised hero of Limerick, who left after the siege of Limerick 1691 with the wild geese and went off to continental Europe, and he actually became one of the most renowned generals for the Russian army. So for Peter the Great, and he actually became the person. Yeah. So the governor of Riga, and he's buried there to this day. But if you look at him and I'd encourage people to Google him, because you look at the amount of campaigns he fought all over Europe. He went around kicking ass all around Europe, and he was just phenomenal. But he was an interesting character, and he came from Limerick, and somebody who had a massive impact. And it's actually interesting. His sons then also went on to serve in other armies, and one of them became the patron of Wolfgang Amadeus, who wrote a song called Gary Own, which is in homage to Limerick. So it's amazing how things all tie into each other. It's just phenomenal. But again, I just wanted to tell that story of that gentleman, and the Imperial Russian Stout with pot still Irish whiskey inside it. So that was the whole.
That's some name dropping there, dropping Mozart in. Fair play to you. Shoehorning in an old Mozart connection.
Or was it's one of the he was in Vienna anyway. It wasn't Mozart. Was I think. It's one of the lads. I'll find.
One of the lads. One of those music lads back in the day.
Geez,
yeah.
Good tunes. So I think that's the Peter Lacy one. So if we move on to the red one, the one that kind of reminds you of Cork. So if you go to that one now, it's one that
Cork by.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, if you ever go to Limerick, a red flag always flies above King John's Castle, and it's a sign of any city that is a city of defiance, that they will never surrender in a siege. And I really like that. But this is it's in homage to a character we've seen in the past, but a second part of his journey. This let's just enjoy it, and I'll talk about it a bit more then. But okay. Jeez. Okay. How many drinks have we got through this evening? I think we've got through a few anyway.
I'm trying to wash my palate out between these sufficiently.
Yeah, good call.
And then trying to think about how loud a slurp I could possibly manage with this one. Because I know I can do it.
Give it a go.
Oh, lovely color on this one.
It's actually a freak of nature. This is
wow.
I can't really take too much credit for this because I was up at Great Northern and I was looking at casks, and I came across this cask, and they said this is a freak cask, and we've never seen a cask give this much character and color in for its age. It was filled into the cask in August of 2020, and it was drawn out in March 10th, 2021. So that is it's a 5-year-old Irish malt, Irish single malt Irish whiskey, and it is just beautiful. And it is a freak of nature, because when I got this cask, this liquid sample that was sent to me, the day was snowing and the light came through it, and it was just crimson. I had to put up on Instagram because it was just so beautiful, and it's just really, really wonderful color to it. And
it's like a rose pink or a rose color. It's stunning.
It is, but the one thing that color will tell you is nothing about the quality of the spirit, being very frank about it, to be honest.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's just beautiful to look at, and it just is really, really wonderful. And I just, this is a ruby port cask, and ruby port is something that's really preserving the character of the grape. And unfortunately, the Douro Valley in northern Portugal has such variety of grapes that I can't tell you definitively what grape variety this is, because the topography and the lay of the land, they have so much of these regional different types of grapes. But I think that's quite special as well. But giving a little bit of a hint pre-release, this is in homage to Michael Hogan, aka Galloping Hogan, his second part of his life, where he became a hero of Portugal. He's defended Portugal against the Spanish, who had the War of Secession, and they were expanding into Portugal. And Michael Hogan, aka Miguel Hogan, became a hero. He taught the Portuguese the nighttime maneuvers that he developed in Limerick, and defended the city of Campos Major against the scourge of Portugal, who was a Spanish guy who was basically the Oliver Cromwell of Portugal, and he defended this city, which was a last stronghold that prevented Lisbon from being taken. And if Lisbon had been taken, no more Portugal. But anyway, eventually he was rewarded for his efforts and for his loyalty with lands, and he married into the Portuguese aristocracy, and his descendants are there to this day. So the idea was a rebellious spirit married, found rest through marriage, and that marriage personifying here is the Portuguese cask. So I wanted to find the Portuguese cask, and I have very, very good Portuguese friends that I made in Graz in Austria, and they're like my brothers and sisters over there. But the color of the liquid, I wanted to represent the color of the red in the Portuguese flag, which is for the blood that was shed for the Portuguese people in defense of Portugal. And the green that will be on the label is for the hope for the future. And I thought that was a beautiful thing that I wanted to kind of combine. So again, if you ever notice anything about my bottles, I put a lot of effort into the conception and the delivery and the design, because I think that's just as much as important as the liquid inside, because it'll sit on a shelf until it's enjoyed, and hopefully, you'll enjoy it and be able to have a story and talk about it. So that's what I like to do and put the time into it. And it's a terror for my wife and myself, because I'm there going, help me out here, write this story down. And I'm
that's a heck of a story, though. It's a hell of a story, and it's not a story; it's the truth. Like it's truth. That's what happened. Yeah.
It's
and that green and the red, of course, today those are the colors of the Portuguese flag too, aren't they?
Exactly. So that's kind of all the linking in and the symbolism and everything that I like to do. But again, if anybody's interested in this, these spirits that I have, what I do is I have on my website that you can register for the future releases, because they're very, very limited single cask strength spirits. But again, I am planning bringing this to America. So if you're interested in getting a bottle, please do visit my website, thomondgatewhiskey.com, and register. But on that note, we'll have a little taste. Again, there's a lot of a story here being told.
Mm. Oh, that's lovely.
Mm.
The dry sugar, the dry port contribution there.
It's lovely. Mm.
Oh, and there's a lovely, like a little hint of like rose water or a very light sweetness coming through.
Oh, definitely. And it's very pleasant, and it's just very inviting. But again, these are cask strength, and they're not blowing the socks off you. That is something that you have to be careful. Is that this is something that's a bit full whack. So I need to buy Nick whiskey and share some. Thanks a million, Patrick. I really appreciate that.
Are there any other examples? And Conor, with your 400 whiskies there, you might have some on your shelf, but outside of a 28-year-old Method of Madness or a 30-year-old single cask redbreast, are there many examples of pot still whiskey that has been matured for some period in port pipes? Anybody know?
Well, from port pipes was when I was looking at the records of Limerick, again, tying back into this, was there were advertising port finished Limerick whiskey, and they were advertising it that it was selling in quarter casks as well. So not pipes, but quarter casks. But again, pipes, you got to think about when I went to Porto, and I would recommend it. The most picturesque place you'll ever go. Really, really beautiful. And my good friend Tiago took us all around the place there. And but you go into the big, the port houses, and they have massive casks. But these ones would never be suitable for maturing whiskey, because it'd be over 700 liters. So the volume of that wouldn't be allowed. But what I'm trying to find is these little casks that traditionally would have been taken down the river in the Douro Valley, and that's what I think would be quite cool, because traditionally it was quite a treacherous journey that they would go down this river. Like think about whitewater rafting, and they would have gone all the way down trying to bring these casks, and that it wouldn't have been an easy task. And then they would have matured them down there by the water. But they matured them down by the water there because the climate, it's more temperate climate than above in the valley, which is again tying back into this coastal location where water is about maturation. So it's Porto, definitely go there. Really, really good. And get the nata cakes. Really delicious. The custard cakes. Oh, they're delicious. And
he's like a tour guide. He's like a Portuguese tour guide here, trying to get us to Porto.
Well, Tiago, Carolina, Mariana, and Rocky, and Tiago would all be, and Carlos would be very happy that I'm doing that, because they've been always good mates of mine.
This time last year, March 2020, I had my flights booked for Porto. I was due to spend 3 days in Porto and explore there and see the Douro Valley for the launch of Redbreast 27, and did it all get cancelled because of the arrival of COVID, the scourge that we thought would last a week or two, and we're still here today with it. That would have been my first trip to the Douro Valley. Yeah, another time. But we'll all go together.
We will, and it's great crack there. Great people. They're like the Irish. They're very welcoming, and they've got very good food, and brilliant crack.
They're like the Irish, only Portuguese.
Well, they're tanned. We're like vampires. We don't like the sunshine, do we?
Conor, what you mentioned, Knappogue being the first tastings that you did. Was there a whiskey that first got you into Irish whiskey?
I'd certainly had plenty of Irish whiskey over the years, but I would say the whiskey that really made me go, oh my goodness, was the Glendalough 13 finished in Mizunara casks, and which obviously they're not producing anymore. But upstairs, I think I have about 6 bottles of it, because as soon as I heard they weren't producing it anymore, I said, get me as much of that as possible. And I'd say to this day, I still haven't had a whiskey that shook me like that did. And I've had some incredible whiskies. And by the way, Nick, I will compliment you on the Imperial Stout finish, the Peter Lacy here. This is really delicious. But for sure, that Glendalough 13-year Mizunara, I didn't know that whiskey could smell like that. I didn't know that whiskey could taste like that. Blew my mind.
It's a savage drop of whiskey. All right. First time trying it, I couldn't wrap my head around it. I think I was too new to the table of whiskey, and it was given to me too early, where I couldn't appreciate it. I was like, what's going on here? This is too much, And then eventually I started to realize, oh, there's coconut, there's milk chocolate, there's so much going on here. And I started to understand how those flavors came about, and the amazing story of Mizunara. It's a great whiskey. It's a really great whiskey. And the Dublin connection with the 13, you know that Dublin connection, don't you? With why it's 13 years of age.
It's Mr. O'Driscoll, right?
That's it. That's
geez.
it. Brian O'Driscoll was an investor in Glendalough Distillery, and they honoured him with and that was his number, of course, his Leinster number, wasn't it? And hence the 13-year-old, yeah, and the colour, the blue.
I'll tell you a funny story about Brian O'Driscoll. Years ago, I used to play a bit of music, and I was playing in the Sugar Club, which is a small club in the city centre. And Brian O'Driscoll happened to be in the audience that night. Now, I wasn't the main attraction by any means. I had the bar on, and I was just kind of playing backing music. But my sister had come along to see the show, and sure, she had no idea who Brian O'Driscoll was. And Brian O'Driscoll sat down in her seat, and my sister ate the head off him, and she was appalled. And she made Brian O'Driscoll get up and move. And she had no idea who she had just told where to go.
Respect. Absolutely. Tell Leinster.
Rules are rules. That's gas.
Fair play.
Is there a style of whiskey today, Conor? Like you mentioned, you've shared pictures every now and again, and you'll share them. You'll tag the lock in, and you'll show some of the great whiskies you have in the background, which is an unbelievable collection. Is there a style or a brand that you keep going back to because it's just that good to you?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a style. Sometimes I'll have a pot still and think it's incredible. Other times I'll try a pot still and think I don't like this at all. And similarly with malts and blends and stuff. So I don't think I gravitate to a particular style. Brand wise, I love Ryder's Tears. I've yet to have even a drop of writer's tears that I didn't thoroughly enjoy. But one of the things, now we don't do this in the app at the moment, but it is one of the kind of longer term vision or ideas we have for people like me who I don't think, hey, I just like single pot still, so I'm going to buy a single pot still. And that's what a lot of recommendations are based around. It's okay, well, you like Redbreast, therefore you're going to like Green Spot, therefore you're going to like, insert any other single pot still. And I think there's a lot of people who don't have taste buds like that. So in the app, we have lots of things around, being able to rate whiskies, look at whiskies, add tasting notes to whiskies, things like that. You can share them and so on, build lists. Over time, when we have enough people using the app, what I really want to be able to do is predict what people will like outside of just you like this style or you like this brand. Take everything that we've seen somebody do in the app and say, you know what, we think you're going to like this particular whiskey because of what you've done in the past. And I think, it might not work, but I think that's a fascinating experiment for us to try down the line.
I think you're right, and I think that would be a great addition and a really welcome tool. I've struggled to find exploration tools or ways to connect the dots between things, and I was looking through the app during the week, and I'd open up a whiskey and it would have lovely tags, sherry or ex-bourbon cask, and I click on it, and there isn't anything clickable right now, but where I could imagine if I like the coconut of Mizunara and I tap that, maybe I'm presented with 2 or 3 others that have Mizunara cask maturation or finish, or there's a coconut note coming through from something else. But that would be a wonderful way to explore and to learn, especially for people like me who I'm new to the world of whiskey, and I'm still trying to figure out what's what. And as you've seen, Conor, building that collection, it can be an expensive process, buying a bottle to learn about a note every time, and it's kind of the only way at the moment.
Yeah. I saw a comment earlier that the app is free, but it's the whiskey that's going to cost you a fortune.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
it's totally true. But definitely, in the app, you'll see there's certain things like, when you're reading about a whiskey and you see ex-bourbon, and we'll underline it, and that's an indication. You can tap that and learn what ex-bourbon means. You can tap Mizunara, Oloroso, etc. Part of that is because, for those of us who've been kind of immersed in whiskey for me, it's only, a year, 2 years or so. But you kind of understand these things now. But I remember when I first started talking to people about whiskey, and I had no idea what they were like. It's actually a very intimidating thing to talk to somebody who knows about whiskey when you don't. So that was kind of part of what we wanted to do with the app, was like, how can we make this super accessible that if there's a phrase that seems out of place, like if you know nothing about Irish whiskey and you're seeing bourbon, that kind of seems odd, right? So we made that underlinable. Anywhere you see it, you can tap it and you're going to understand why bourbon is important in Irish whiskey and so on. And that's throughout the app. And definitely, what you've said there, Barry, about seeing the different types of casks and things like that look like they're tappable. They're not yet, but they absolutely will be. That's where we want to get to with it. And the same with the tastes, we're a little different on iPhone and Android at the moment, but people on the iPhone app will see when you read tasting notes, we highlight different colors depending on the taste. And there's a reason for that. That ties back to categories of tastes and stuff like that, which at the moment you can't do a whole lot with, but we will add all that to the app as well, which is, if you tap something like, a sherry note inside of tasting, there's a good chance you're going to like Oloroso, PX, etc., potentially other fortified wines and things like that. So we've built a lot of the back end to be able to tie those things together, but it's not there in the app yet. But that's absolutely where we'd love to get to.
Well, hopefully there's enough of a community around Irish whiskey, which I think there is, that is willing to share their feedback to help. Help let you know what's working, what's not working, what would be good to do, what they'd like to see. But I'd imagine that there's a danger with it, like with any project, of the scope creep and there being too much. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Well, you could. But why should you? And so I'm curious about whether there is an ideal use case for the app. Is there an ideal journey that you're hoping the ideal person takes through the app?
Let me start with the one that is not for us the ideal journey, but it is actually the one that comes up the most. I mean, I hear this every couple of days is, would you add auction information to the app? either the ability to participate in auctions via the app or see prices of, you know, bottles via auction, etc., through the app. And whilst I do collect some whiskey and some I've bought as investments, we absolutely have no intention of it becoming something that's tied to auctions. And, you know, that's nothing against auctions, but we want to make this something that brings people into Irish whiskey and makes Irish whiskey accessible. And quite frankly, I think auctions do the opposite of that. For somebody who's brand new to the category, auctions are incredibly intimidating, and so that's not something that we're going to do or get into. It's not the type of experience we want people to have. You know, so what we would love, you know, people to do is things like when you're in an off-license or bottle shop or a liquor store, and you're looking at different whiskies on the shelf and you're not sure what one to buy or, you know, what's good value for money, take out the app and search or either scan them and see basic things like the rating, basic things like the tasting notes, etc., to help you make a decision on, is this the right bottle for you to buy or not? And then, you know, after you've purchased something, put a rating into the app, and help build that then, so it becomes a resource for everybody that, you know, this is a good whiskey, this is, you know, not necessarily a bad whiskey, but this is, you know, what's good for me, what's not good for me, etc. Add your tasting notes and help build up that information so that it becomes a great resource for everybody, but ultimately is a way that people can discover Irish whiskey in a very accessible and friendly way.
I'm thrilled to see the arrival of new entrants into the various aspects of Irish whiskey that are not just making Irish whiskey, like apps, auctions, websites, blogs, you name it. Everything kind of ancillary to the making of Irish whiskey is a great sign of a burgeoning industry and a burgeoning community and movement around Irish whiskey. One of the challenges that retailers faced around the world with the arrival of new technology around things was when Amazon and apps allowed you to scan barcodes and find prices of things, and the likes of Best Buy and large retailers in the US had to figure out, how do we deal with somebody coming in with an app, scanning our barcode, finding out that the thing that's on sale is $50 cheaper somewhere else, they're buying online and walking out the door. So if your use case is to scan a bottle in store, but there's also a buy now button on that same page, how do you navigate that? And how do you put how do you bring the retailers into the fold, or do you even try?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier, at least a little bit. In our research and our surveys, people who buy in a store want to buy in a store. If you're in a store and the bottle is there in front of you, there's the instant gratification of getting that bottle and taking it home.
Yeah.
You know, and we won't compete with that and don't necessarily want to compete with that. Vivino doesn't compete with that. You know, anybody I know, and Vivino is an incredibly successful company, huge. I've never met a single person who's bought a bottle of wine through Vivino, ever. Yet I know lots of people who use it in that situation in a store to help them decide what to buy. So I don't actually think an app like ours is a threat to retailers in that scenario. I think it helps them. I think it helps their customers make a better decision. And a customer makes a better decision if the customer's going to buy again. For us, you know, the app is free, right? And very deliberately so. And going back to what I was saying about making Irish whiskey accessible, I don't want to put any barriers in front of people to learn about it and to go on the sort of journey that I've gone. So the app is free. It's not about making money for us. It never has been. And you know, there are costs. There's pretty significant costs in terms of building something like that bottle scanner and the hosting and stuff that goes on behind it. The reason we have the purchase button that takes it to Irish Malts is so that we can cover those costs. And that is literally all the app will do. We have full-time jobs, you know, that cover the fact that we need to pay mortgages and whatnot. And we would love if this was something we could do full-time, but it's not about making money. It's about making whiskey more accessible to people. And it's not about competing with retailers. It's in many ways it's about helping them.
We should all support Conor. Download the app if you haven't already, irishwhiskeyapp.com. Put it on your phone, play with it, give feedback, share with Conor what you like, what you don't like, what's working, what's not working for you. But above all, let's just build a community of support around Irish whiskey and help people who are committing their time and their resources and taking a risk. Nick's taking a risk, Conor's taking a risk with their time and their money, and we need to support it. Mrs. Stories and Sips had a great line I've never forgotten. She shared with me a while back. She said, if a friend of yours ever comes out with anything, whether it's they write a book, they build something, whatever it is, just buy it. It doesn't matter whether you need it. It doesn't matter whether you want it. You do it to support them. And I think it's a great way. It's just, I've never forgotten it. And now anytime somebody comes out with something, I want to support somehow. And I think we should do the same with the whiskey app, and obviously with Thomond Gate Whiskey. So yeah, everyone download the app and make sure and rate it as well. Conor, in your travels around Irish whiskey, in the short time that you've been involved with it, you've built up a collection of Irish whiskey that would make a grown man weep, and make many bank managers and chief financial officers weep as well, I'd say, by the size of that collection. Are you collecting whiskey to drink, to eat, to sell? What are you doing with all that whiskey?
So you probably can't tell. The vast majority of that is open. I love buying it and trying something new. I just love the experience of trying something new and learning about it. Now, there are whiskies there that are not open and that are somewhat investments. And if you'll indulge me for a second, yesterday was World Autism Awareness Day. One of my daughters has autism. And the reason I say that is this is quite a funny story about this. I have twin daughters who were born in 2014, and I decided about 2 years ago what I would do is start building a Middleton Very Rare collection for them from when they were born. So I had to go, so I use the auction sites too, right? I've gone back to get everything from 2014 up to the current day, and plan on doing so until they're 18. Okay. And I was telling my daughters this the other day. And so I was explaining, that this is very expensive whiskey. It goes up in value. It's cost a lot of money to get it. But, when they're 18, they will inherit this and they can do whatever they want with it. And, I probably foolishly pointed out, look, I like to taste all the whiskeys, but you can do whatever you want. Some people will, some people will sell it on. Some people will hold it and the value of it. And my daughter, Ava Jane, and if you have any experience of people with autism, they're incredibly literal and they always say what they think, which is just the most beautiful thing. And she just turns to me, she goes, that will be the first whiskey that I drink.
Fair play, sir. Fair play.
Okay.
I think, you know what, she's got good taste anyway. Then waiting for the good stuff.
You have to stop pointing out the good stuff. You got to point to the 12 and the 14 euro bottles and be like, that.
Yeah, that's the one you want. Yeah.
Tell us about. So, give us an overview, Conor, of the features of the app that you're most proud of, that you want people to use and explore, to give people an idea of how best to use it.
I guess. So the obvious things, at least on the iPhone app right now, are the bottle scanner. It's not perfect. And what I'd say to people is, if the whiskey isn't in the app, there's no chance it will not scan it because it doesn't know how to scan it. But when it is something that's in the app, the scanner is a really delightful thing to use. Unfortunately, we don't have that on Android yet, but we will in the next couple of weeks. What I love most about it, though, is what we call factoids, which was just a silly little name we gave to this, and it came from that original, doing tastings with friends that I was talking about earlier, and not just here, taste that whiskey and what do you get from it, but here's a little bit of information about the whiskey, or here's a little bit of information about the brand or the style or whatever, something that you might not have known before. Even talking like the sort of information Nick gave me earlier, which is brilliant. I love that, and I would encourage people that as you're using the app, even whiskies that you have and you think to actually don't just add it to your list. Actually scroll through the page and scroll down and look for things that are tappable, look for things that are in bubbles, etc. And I would be surprised if most people don't learn something interesting that they didn't know before. And for me, I've kind of said it a few times, that's one of the things I love about whiskey. There's just so much to learn. There's always something to learn. And when you have people like Nick giving you little snippets, Dahi from WD O'Connell gave me some snippets recently as well, and you've just got these things that people, there's no way anybody could have known those things other than hearing it from Nick, hearing it from Dahi, or scrolling through the app and go, oh, that's cool. So it's a really good app for cataloging things and building wish lists and stuff like that. But actually use it to explore and use it to learn about the whiskies. That's where I think people will get the most delight from it.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's great. I pulled up the app there now. I wanted to test the scan feature. I might as well give people a little look about it live here. We'll do it live. This is the worst time to test anything, isn't it? Like, do it live. People freak out because they worry about what's going to happen. So on the app, there's that little orange button down in the corner. So go to browse or search, and then the little camera icon in the bottom right. So down the bottom right hand corner, see that orange icon there, Nick?
No, I'm not seeing it. I don't know.
Nick, are you on an Android phone there, Nick?
No, Apple. So I'm going.
Okay, so yeah, if you go into search, the middle tab
search.
At the bottom.
Oh, yeah, perfect. Now this is where I'm excited. I'm excited to see if it'll pick up the bottle.
Nick, I can give you a spoiler alert. It's not going to pick up. It's not going to pick up that because
just new.
I haven't. Yeah.
That's
Did you ever hear this?
What Barry has though.
Would it pick up this one? This is a rare one I picked up there the other day.
Okay.
I found it on a dusty shelf.
I think I have one of them.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to press start and scan, and let me see, put it into frame. There it is. There
You go.
It picked it up. It's picking up the things behind me on the shelf too. Look.
It did as well. That's fair play.
That's how good it is. It's picking up the shelves behind me.
It did. That's really cool. Fair play, Conor. Now, Conor, I'm quite curious. You know what you were saying there earlier about the pick up what you like. I heard about a Swedish company using AI to develop a whiskey. So, hypothetically speaking, you could do the same with your app. You could find out what people like, and then we could create an AI Irish whiskey. So I'm officially inviting you. If you are finding that data, I want to do that. I want to make that happen. So I'm all for it.
I'm in 100%. I think that would be absolutely brilliant to do. So once we get enough data and we start to understand how to slice it up, I think we should look at what we could do. I think that would be incredible.
Be good crack. Good crack.
I'll just step away here and let you two boys work that out. I'm going to take a break.
Yeah,
that's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, isn't that the untapped piece of the new Irish whiskey world? Is the data that's being collected that up until now nobody knew anything about who was buying what. Nobody knew where they bought it, how they bought it, what they paid for it in different places, and even beyond that, the data that's being collected at the production level, like. Waterford Distillery have, the data they have collected, the hundreds of data points on every distillation, from the license plate of the truck that went to pick up the barley to the color of the shirt of the farmer on the day. I mean, these are all data points, whether you can use them or not. But isn't that incredible? Like, whatever happens those in time, or how you can use them, like you said, Nick, to influence a future release.
Oh, well, like, I know they did it in Sweden. I don't know if it's any good, to be honest with you, but I heard about it and I was going, it's been interesting, but they use the AI based on what people liked to then create a blend. So hypothetically speaking, if I ever do a blend, I would want to do it. This is the only blend I'm quite keen on doing, is an AI blend, just for the crack, because I'm quite fascinated with technology and I love whiskey. So I think it's a good little thing. So anyway.
If there wasn't already a whiskey called the Lock-In from JJ Corrie, you would have had to have called it the Lock-In, thanks to its genesis and birth right here.
Yeah, true. But what you could call it, the AI Lock-In or something like that. I don't know. But no, I think that's what's exciting about Irish whiskey, because we have so much options, and we can use what casks we choose to do, and having some really cool data that we could try to pull things apart. I think there's some really exciting stuff which Conor is doing, and I'm a very big fan of what you've created. So thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
No, not a bother, man.
Lots of great feedback in the comments too, how people are intending to use the app. Rebecca's going to use it to record her impressions when she's trying new whiskies, because her memory is crap. Great. That's a good use case. Let me see. Kieran says, I think I played basketball against Conor and his brother years ago. I think Thomond Gate is like a liquid time machine. Did you ever play basketball, Conor?
You know what? I would say that's a fact. For however many months I've been noticing Kieran's profile picture there playing basketball. And yeah, despite the fact I'm a small fella, I played basketball all my life. I wasn't never nearly as accomplished as my older brothers, who were much, much better than me and taller. I think that might have had something to do with it. But I recognized Kieran's name, and obviously the fact he's playing basketball. And I was like, I wonder, do I know him? And then I noticed that he was in the US. I was like, well, I couldn't. So, but obviously we did.
There's no one that Kieran's not connected to. I'll send Kieran a text. I'll say, did you ever hear of this fella? And he go, yeah, I put the windows in his house. I painted his wall. I went to school with his cousin. My mother has coffee with his wife every Tuesday morning. He's like, everyone is three degrees of separation from Kieran Quinn.
I agree. He knows my feckin' uncle. So it's and he's from the village over from my whole mother's side of the family. So
it's incredible. I see in the comments here he's rattling off a few other names of people I know very, very well. People I grew up with. Incredible. What a world.
That's the power of the Irish community internationally. We all know each other, and we're all happy to help each other. So that's the thing. And that's
it also means you can't get away with anything because somebody will know what you did, and they'll tell your mother.
Well, that's the way it should be, shouldn't it? And everybody's frightened their mammy. So that's not, the best, better than the Garda.
And downloaded the app. She said, thank you for creating it. Wonderful hole in the industry filled. Anne is going to be joining us next week on the lock-in. Anne represents Clonakilty Distillery, and we're looking forward to having Anne on. She was on a while back as well, but she'll be joining us to talk some new things with the distillery.
Can I selfishly jump in, Barry, and say I've been pinging Clonakilty for a few days now. I really want to get the Clonakilty range into the app. So if Anne can help me out, that would be incredible.
This is all happening. It's all coming together. We are utilizing and abusing the platform in the best way to bring people together and bring whiskeys together. Let's get Clonakilty in the app. I'm sure that's an easy fix. Let me see, what other comments do we have here? David McMahon is looking forward to the Irish Whiskey app AI blend. This will now be asked for every day for the next 2 years until people see it in a bottle.
I will do it if Conor can gather the data, and I hand up, shaking digitally. It's happening. So yeah.
I've witnessed it.
Yeah. We have to spit and let's make it official.
Conor, I'll connect you with Anne. We will do that. I'll connect you with Anne. She has given us a double opt-in permission to connect you there, so that's done. We'll make that happen. Tony wants to know, is Irish gin in the app? That would be outside of the realms of Irish whiskey, presumably.
It would be. And, gin, that's the first time somebody has asked for gin. A couple of times people have asked for whiskey liqueurs and things like that. Right now, we're very steadfast in it will be only Irish whiskey and things that meet the criteria to be Irish whiskey, so that we can make it an experience all about the category. And I think whatever happens down the line right now, that's what we really want to do, is build an Irish whiskey app.
What's the end goal? Is there an end goal? Is there any idea of where it could go and what could happen it, or is it too early to say?
I want to be able to stand in front of this and it tell me what to drink. No, we set about, so there's three of us working on this. David, who wants the AI blend that you commented a second ago, is one of them. We set about building an app that we wanted to use, that would, other people might enjoy. But this is the second time myself and David have worked on a project together. The first time we built, not toot my own horn too much here, but we built a relatively successful business about 7 years ago. Actually, maybe a little bit longer than that, when the App Store first launched in 2008. That's what, 12, 13 years ago. And that was because we sat down one evening over a couple of pints and thought, what would we like to build? What app would we like to have? And that turned into a business that we ran for a number of years and did quite well. And this is a similar kind of story when we sat down and had a few whiskeys this time and played around the whiteboard and, you know, what would we really like? What would really help us in our Irish whiskey journey? And maybe that will turn into a full-time thing. Maybe that will be something that we can focus and spend more time and energy on. I would love that. It's something I'm very passionate about. But it's not, I would be lying if I said we have an end game. We just wanted to build something that we really like and that people enjoy.
That's good enough for me. I want to move on to the third. I say the third whiskey of the night, but I really mean is the 46th whiskey of the night, the third advertised whiskey of the night, which is the Knappogue Castle 21-year-old. I want to take a sip of this. So I fell in love with this whiskey a year and a half, 2 years ago in New York, with Tim McKee from Whiskey Wednesdays, who invited me to his house to try some of his collection of Irish whiskey, which was immense and amazing. And we tried side by side the Knappogue Castle 21-year-old against the very different Knappogue, the Knappogue Castle 1951, which is a pot still whiskey, and the 21-year-old is a single malt. But just to try old, matured Knappogues, things that had the Knappogue name on them. And the Knappogue Castle 21-year-old won out for both of us. We thought it was a astonishing whiskey, a staggeringly good whiskey. I think I described it during the week. And it's, I want to taste it now. I want to talk about it. And Conor, I know you're a fan of the Knappogue range of whiskies. And it's there's a lot to talk about with Knappogue. There's a great history, a great story to the brand, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. I actually, do you know what? I don't have the 21-year-old. I ordered it during the week in the hope it would be here for tonight, and it didn't make it on time. But the Knappogue history and where it came from, and it's one of the original kind of, unashamedly bonding whiskey makers. They're not pretending to be a distiller, never were pretending to be a distiller, was always about buying interesting casks, maturing interesting casks and releasing them. The mistake I made on my slide, a year or so ago, was I said that they were always doing single malts, which clearly they weren't. They were doing single pot stills at one point. But I think it's a fascinating brand. And if for no other reason then, I don't think there's a person in the world who could read that label and pronounce it until it's told to them properly.
That's right. And it's
Knappogue.
Yeah, I know it's a great name to be bringing to America, and looking for people to pronounce it the right way. To be like naming a child a funny Irish name and wondering why the Americans can't pronounce it the right way. It's the etymology is it's Irish derivation. It means literally the hill of the kiss. Pogue is a kiss in Irish, and nap. A nap is a hill. So Knappogue, it's the hill of the kiss. And interestingly, it's had a very storied journey to where it is today. Believe it or not, Knappogue Castle whiskies are part of the same stable of whiskies today as Redbreast and Powers and Spot whiskies. That might surprise some people to know. They were acquired. Castle Brands, the parent company of Knappogue Castle, was acquired by Pernod Ricard probably 18 months ago, maybe not much longer than that, mostly to acquire the Jefferson's brand of bourbon. And I think Knappogue Castle became a kind of we'll throw this in as well, or I suppose we own this now as well. But Knappogue Castle Brands started with the whiskey, expanded onto other brands to create the Castle Brands portfolio. Over the years, it has, the original Knappogue story is well told. I think I've shared a podcast episode on it. Mark Edwin Andrews, an American man in the 1960s, bought a castle in County Clare, Knappogue Castle, and then he decided that wasn't good enough. He should fill the basement with whiskey, which is something that Conor has done with his purchases too. And he decided to look for whiskey in the 60s in Ireland, which there wasn't a whole lot of whiskey around except for a few silent distilleries that had stock left over that had found no home. And he bought some of the old stock from the B. Daly Distillery in Tullamore. So old Tullamore whiskey, pot still whiskey. He brought it to his cellars. He brought it to the castle. This is a Hallmark movie waiting to be told or waiting to be made. But he brought it to the cellars and he aged his whiskey there. And famously, he bottled up many casks for friends, wrote his name on the label, gave out these bottles to friends who devoured them. And then he released some for sale And the most famous of all of them was the 1951 Knappogue, because I think that was, to the best of my knowledge, wasn't that 100% pot still aged in 100% sherry casks for 36 years? Was a sherry, I think it was, 36 years, and released in 1987. And to this day, it's kind of a collector's item. It's something that's sought after. So that stock all came from the old Tullamore distillery. More recently, his son, and I say more recently, in the 1980s and 1990s, his son decided to he took over that side of the business. He grew it. Of course, there was no more stock available from the Tullamore distillery, and instead they decided to source whiskey. So in the 80s, it would have been 80s, 90s, and up to present day, the stock has always been, the present day Knappogue has come from one of two distilleries, Cooley Distillery or Bushmills in Northern Ireland. So both of those make single malt, which means that it would have been both double distilled and triple distilled in its history as a modern day brand. So it's quite interesting. My understanding is that today 100% of Knappogue Castle is made at Bushmills. There is I've seen mention of it in partnership contracts between the two. So an interesting journey to where they are today. This is a staggering whiskey. It's really, look, it's a 21-year-old single malt, which I fell in love with the Bushmills 21-year-old when I first tried it. I love orchard fruit bomb of a whiskey, and this is one of those. Both of you have tried this. Have you, Conor and Nick? Have you tried this whiskey before?
I haven't. Actually.
I haven't.
I have Knappogue here beside me, but not the 21-year-old. The closest I think that I have to this 16 or 16 up there on the shelf. They're quite fruity though. Real big fruity aromas on them. Again, if telltale sign of potentially up north, not without saying any names. But yeah, really, really lovely.
I'll say the names. I'll take the heat. I'm cool with it. I'll wait for the cease and desist letter to come in and say, stop naming the distilleries.
That's it.
It's very fruity on the nose. There's a warmth to the nose. It's like a Granny Smith apple in caramel and milk chocolate coating, like it's dipped, like a green apple is dipped into it. Really, really fruity on the nose. I'm slurping again.
I'll need to get some.
Oh, it's such a good whiskey. Milk chocolate, green apples, pears, melon, banana. It's just stunning. It's so good. It's a fruit basket. It's an edible arrangement in a bottle. Yeah, unreal.
We're just a bit jealous here. That's the only problem. Conor and I are just looking at you going,
Jeez, I'm surprised now with all your whiskies.
well,
Nick, show us there. Move your camera around and show us your one or two whiskies that you have.
that's just all the samples. Just samples after
Look at
samples
this.
after samples. And then up above is all different spirits. And then there's another room next door. And then over in the corner there, the other room, there's like an army case. Some ammunition boxes I got years ago. And I've converted them into a whiskey, just everything, all sorts. I've got some Austrian beers and Irish whiskey and some wines and Swedish glug, all that. Basically, whatever takes my fancy, I'll chuck it in there.
That's the way to do it.
That's the way to do it. But fair play. I'll have to get a drop of that.
I'm going to get a full bottle. I've decided it's something that needs to be on the shelf. Bushmills was the one that introduced me to how good an Irish single malt truly can be, because of course, really, who else leads the charge of single malts in Ireland but Bushmills? But the 21-year-old really just introduced me to it. Myself and herself sitting in a bar in Portland, Oregon, looking up the shelf, deciding we should get something nice, and seeing this Bushmills 21 and ridiculously overpaying for it at the time until we tasted it, and then realized we just had the best whiskey we'd had in years, and just really introduced me to an aged Irish single malt. But this is beautiful. Really love it. Really recommend, if you can try it, if you can find it, if you can get it at a bar, taste this Knappogue 21. It's a stunning, stunning whiskey.
Be really interesting to see now, with all the distilleries opening around Ireland, all the different locations, what options we'll have in 21 years' time. Can you imagine that? It's going to be, the app will be literally talking to us and telling us stories. It'll be the the Barry Chandler app, it'll be like digitalized.
There'll be no more lock-in. There'll be no need for the lock-in.
No. it'll be like Alexa, but it'll be called Barry, and we'll ask it, and it'll give us answers back. I think that might have to be a feature now, Conor. It'll have to be ask the app, and it'll ask Barry, what about this whiskey, and get the answer back.
Conor, if you call your virtual assistant in your app Barry, we'll give you free advertising forever on the lock-in.
Done. The deals that are being done here tonight, we're doing an
Who's
AI
writing
blend and a Barry AI.
That's it.
We got an attorney. Is there an attorney in the audience here that can be writing all these deals down?
It's a public record anyway, so I think it's as good as a contract.
I think I'm going to delete this live stream after we're done, so it can never be watched again, for fear we're all incriminated and held to task.
Well,
couple of questions.
Yeah.
Go on. No, go ahead.
I was going to say is the one kind of good news I want to share with everybody is the barley is sown in the ground and oats this year. So big relief for this year for the crop that planning for 2021. I said that we had some challenges last year. So all being well, we're going bigger and better than I did, pushing the boat out a bit. So it's going to be a big amount of crop, not giving quantities as such, but it's fields, not a field, fields.
Multiple.
It's kind of multiple fields, and fields that I grew up near, but like literally one of my best friends has grown up as a kid. His house is across the way from the fields and it's only I could walk to the fields where the barley are growing from where I grew up. So that's how local it is, and you can see Thomond Park off at the end of the field, like off in the distance, 6 kilometers away. Anyway, but I'm really excited about that, and inviting those who are interested. We'll be doing a cask program around it, which help obviously fund and support the laying down of the stock. But again, it should be only for fun that you're buying a cask, and I'm sure Barry will recommend people being aware of casks. They're not as easy and they're a little bit complicated. But anyway, that's something I'm really excited about.
Great news.
Really
that is second only to the good news you shared earlier about the new arrival coming.
No, the babies, everything. That's like, the last baby I missed Whiskey Live for, and I would do it again. So gladly, and he's brilliant. I'm actually slightly worried about him, because he comes in here and he goes around and he goes and starts smelling. He does his face like this is his face, and I know it's a dog face because that's what the dog does. It's like that. But he does want to smell everything and taste everything. So I'm a bit worried that the minute he's allowed to or able, he'll be cracking into everything and trying to taste it, and But at least I know I have a brand ambassador for the future. So, and another one on the way. So that's all that matters.
You certainly do have a brand ambassador, and let me see if we can.
Actually, he's there. He's just. Let me take the picture down off the. Anyway, I'm being a proud daddy. That's him there. Hector Ryan. So anyway, he's a good lad. He's a good lad. Anyway.
I think we might have another picture here that might also be.
He's obsessed with tractors. So, Conor, and he is the proud owner of Bottle 1, which is going to probably cause some family feuds in the future. So, the next bottle of the cask has to go to the next sibling. So, they won't all have a single collection. They'll have to share the collection between them. That's the only thing.
That's hilarious.
So we only can have 3 kids because there's only going to be 3 bottles out of that cask, So otherwise,
what a whiskey-inspired life you lead, and whiskey-controlled life that you lead.
No, I know. But anyway, he's obsessed with tractors and farming. So I think he'll be my farmer. Which is
get them young, nurture them young, and have cheap labor. That's it. That's the way to do it.
Child labor, is it? No, he's we do know what he's old.
There are special rules about family members working in the business, so you'll be okay.
That's it.
A few questions have come in here I want to get to real quick regarding Knappogue 21. Can we get it? Is it available in the United States? Yes, it is. And Larry Masuka, our friend in Folsom Wine and Spirits, has shared only 1,400 bottles came into the US in 2019. There are still a few on the shelf. I've seen it everywhere from $190 up to $299, depending on where you get it, online or in person. So it is available, and it's worth seeking out. Ed wants to know what the ABV is on this bottle. It's 46%, which means perhaps you're getting a 21-year-old Bushmills for 6% extra ABV. Hint, hint, for those of you who are not super excited about Bushmills 40% offerings. Maybe this, who knows? Is this a Bushmills? Is it a Cooley? Who knows? Okay, let me see. There was one other question here. Oh, yes. It is from Martin Hilliard. He says, the best deals are made with whiskey. That reminds me that years ago, I used to work on ships, and there was a sign on one of the ships because couples would come on the ship and they would want to be married by the captain. And this was a big thing for them. And there was a sign on the ship that said, marriages performed by the captain are valid only for the duration of the voyage. And I'd like to think that deals made under the duress of whiskey are valid only for the duress of that whiskey. Well, you can follow up on all of your deals afterwards. 46% ABV is perfect, says Steve. It is, I agree. Cracking whiskey. Okay, we've tasted 48,000 whiskies tonight. We started with our Powers John's Lane, which is a standard in every whiskey drinker's house. Powers John's Lane, a remarkable 12-year-old pot still from Middleton. We then moved on to the newest addition to the Dunville's line of whiskies, 1808. A super affordable $24.99. Come on, you can't beat that. $24.99, new entrant, mixture of sourced whiskey and their own whiskey that is made with their own barley, grown on the Ecklenville estate. This is a blend of 3 different styles of whiskey: pot still, malt, and grain. Super light, a little hint of peat, maybe somewhere around 5% peat. They will correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it's somewhere in the region of 5%. And that's well worth picking out. And what a great evolution in Irish whiskey that we're seeing now, blends arriving on the market with peat components in them, peated malt, just like Two Stacks did a few weeks ago as well. And then we moved on to Knappogue 21. But in the meantime, in between all those, we sampled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 whiskies / new make spirits from Nick, which was great. Thank you so much for sharing those with us. Loved your inaugural release, your single pot still. Very, very impressed. The 3 winners tonight. How can you have 3 winners? But anyway, sharing first place on the podium of Thomond Gate. The new make spirit, the port cask, and the original pot still. They were my 3 winners.
Well, I'm glad you like them. That's a good thing. There'll be make sure that everyone. Well, if you're interested in a bottle, make sure to register on the website, because that's the way I send an email out to everybody and let them know that they're available. It's a single casks that are released. Actually, forgot to mention, I am releasing 2 casks in tandem to each other of the port casks, sister casks, to highlight the difference between the two. And how many bottles of Thomond Gate in the US in 2021? Well, Larry, that's a good question. Now it will be as many as you'll be happy to help me with. But we from 298-ish, around that, if all being well. I think Larry's making the announcement here we're planning on bringing it over to the States, which is Miguel Hogan. So this is Michael Hogan, the port cask finish that Barry has put on the podium there. So make sure to register on my website if you're interested in that. If you are keen about coming on the journey, make sure with the cask program, and I'm probably going to do some fun stuff around the casks, maybe a bit of a cask share around that, because not all of us are going to want to buy an entire cask. But I'm trying to do is get people to join me on the journey, and I want to do is invite you all to Limerick, and we'll have a great time. The Ryder Cup is coming in 2027, so if you're golf fans, we'll see you there.
You're like some kind of combination of tourism ambassador for Portugal and Limerick all rolled into one.
I told you. That's what happened in the office back when I was in London. They were like, Jesus, Nick, you're just on about Ireland. And then when I was in Austria, the same. They were like, you're talking about Ireland all the time. Why are you over here in Austria? Like, but it's great. You have to come over. You come over and visit Ireland. I literally became my dad when he's on holidays. He meets a guy from Japan, and actually the Japanese guy did take him up on his offer, and he was great crack. So it's all good fun to invite everybody back to Ireland, and get them to enjoy it, and then they go back and they tell others, and that's what it's all about. Get them to come to see our little green part of the world.
That's it. That's right. So you must have been out in force a week ago defending scurrilous arguments and claims about Limerick in Forbes online.
Well, you know what? As a very wise person said, what? All it shows is they've never been to Limerick, and they've never really enjoyed and met Limerick people. And you know what? We invite them to come, and I'm quoting wise words here, inviting them to come to Limerick and enjoy our hospitality, and we will take them around and ensure that they have such a good time that they will realize the mistakes of their way, because it is one hell of a good place to be. And Barry, you chose to live there, and you've stayed at one of the world's best hotels that resides in Limerick. So I don't really understand how anybody could have, I guess, made such quick comments, about this, but we're all very proud of Limerick. Anyway,
it's no Cork. It's no Cork, but you're very proud of it.
Sure. My sister married a Cork man, and she lives in Douglas, so I know there must be some appeal to Cork at least. Anyway, but Cork is not that far. It's not far off Limerick. It's just we're married at the border anyway. So I think
is the road between Cork and Limerick the Cork Road or the Limerick Road?
Sure, it depends on which direction you're going.
One of the best lock-ins of my life, real life lock-ins, was in Limerick, and it took place in 1998. That's how long ago it was, and it was underground, and I wouldn't be able to find the place now. It was as if I was brought there at 3:00 in the morning with a blindfold on through a winding maze of 46 different streets. But it was underground in a pub where the entire pub had been recreated underground under a trapdoor purely for the purposes of a lock-in, and that gets my vote. So Limerick, for that reason alone, would get my vote as a great city, for that kind of level of commitment to illegalities and beating the system. You have to raise a glass to it.
Well, there's a good story I heard about. There was a prolific illicit producer of poachine in Limerick years and years ago, apparently, and he was producing in the basement next to the Garda station. Apparently, this is what I heard. But, it was one of these things that they were producing. This is back donkeys, not probably even before the Republic itself, this kind of thing. But it was just one of these incredible stories that they were producing on the nose of the police, back in the day. But you know what? Limerick is a wonderful, wonderful place, and it is most beautiful scenery. And if you go we have a location older than the pyramids in Limerick. In Newgrange, Lochgur. It's a stone circle, and it's like Stonehenge. It's unbelievable. You go there, it's fantastic. And Lochgur, the goddess Anu, attributed to the harvest and the summer. Legend said that she resided in the hills around Lochgur. So it's even the ancient Irish thought Limerick was special. That just tells you.
I mean, no greater praise could be paid. Next, you'll be telling us that the holy relic of Clonniffert was in Limerick as well.
Well, the Ardagh chalice was taken from Limerick from a spud field, so that tells you.
Great things come out of a spud field.
That's it. I'm sure we all did.
Conor, you're in Dublin, aren't you?
I am. You know where that is, do you?
I've heard of it. It's
that's in the not Cork part of your map.
Big chimney stacks up in the distance. I saw one time. I thought that must be the big smoke up there.
I was just going to say to Nick, do you know what? I have watched a year's worth of these lock-ins, and never has Barry let anybody talk about a location other than Cork for so long. So, wow.
Can't shut him up.
Limerick is on the map.
Attrition. He just beats me down with his talk of Limerick.
Well, that's what I told you. My whole job was to put Limerick back on the map, and I literally put it. I can't even find the here. There's just one here. Even so much. There's a map on the bottle, so just in case you can't find it. But anyway, that's the goal, and I'm trying to live true to it.
I admire it. I admire your goal. Notwithstanding the fact that 90% of all Irish whiskey comes from Cork, I admire your goal of trying to change the narrative and change the story. I appreciate it. I do.
Well, you know what? They've done a good job. I can't take that away.
Martin Hilliard calling out a great hotel in Cork, which a friend of mine was the manager for years, the Hayfield Manor in Cork, up behind UCC, University College Cork. The only hotel that when you get through the door, they asked you, would you like a glass of whiskey? That's absolutely true. And did you know that whiskey was West Cork whiskey? And it's in some of the rooms as well. And great spot, Hayfield Manor. TJ Mulcahy, a friend of mine who I worked with in Adair, managed the hotel for years. And he's now down in the Park Hotel in Kenmare. So listen, lads, I think we have said a lot. We've drank a lot.
Yeah.
We've entertained the masses. I'm hoping, Conor, that you get some downloads. Please use our group, Irish Whiskey Fans of America. Post at will. Get them involved. Ask them for feedback. Survey them, whatever you want to do. Anything we can do to support you, please let us know. And Nick, let us know what we can do as well to support your entree into America. And how we can get more of Miguel Hogan into people's hands.
Well, the first thing they can do is go to the website and register for a bottle. That's the first thing they can do. And the other thing is ThomondGateWhiskey.com. And then what they need to do is, once they've registered, they need to be an irritating person and tell their mate, at least two other mates. That's kind of the key. But it's sharing is caring.
Some salesman, I tell you what, you're not missing the opportunity of a chance at a cask sale here. Fair play to you. So ThomondGateWhiskey.com, visit there for no other reason only than he's going to keep talking about it unless you do. So go visit Thomond Gate Whiskey. And then IrishWhiskeyApp.com or the App Store or Google Play will give you access to Irish Whiskey app, right, Conor?
Exactly, yeah. We will be the first result if you search any of those locations. And look, it's free. What have you got to lose? It's
free. It costs you nothing. You'll be broke after using it, but it costs you nothing.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we've missed? Conor, have we missed anything with the app? Is there anything else we want people to know?
You know what would be incredible, and this is a little self-serving, is for people who do download the app and enjoy it, rating it in the Google Play Store or rating it in the App Store makes a huge difference. So the way that apps get visibility in those stores is all around ratings. So the more people who rate it, the more likely it's going to be seen by other people, and the more likely we'll get more Irish whiskey drinkers on board. So rating it would be my big ask, and that would be incredible.
That's easy. Everyone be like Colleen. App downloaded, registered at Thomond Gate. Great night. Everyone be like Colleen. Colleen knows how to live.
Thank you, Colleen. Thank you.
I'm very appreciative of both of your time tonight. This has been a lot of fun. This has been great crack, and it makes me sad that I missed a week of a lock-in last week. I realised the crack I've been missing. So thanks a million for joining us, and maybe you'll come back again with more updates, Nick, when you get to America. Come back and join us and fly the flag again for Porto and for Limerick.
Oh no, absolutely, and I'm happy as well. If anybody's in the world of education, that's a conversation probably for another night as well. About the old courses and all that. But anyway, I think that's a conversation for another time.
We'll have you back for that. Yeah, Nick has a whole other life, and we've not touched on it because we had to leave time for all his promoting of Limerick and Portugal. So we'll talk about that another time.
Portugal has great fish food, really good fish food, and really nice beers, really small. Super Bock, really good.
They've already registered, Nick. You can stop now. They've already registered.
I won't have the crack. Anyway, it's been good fun, lads. Really enjoyed it.
It's been great. Conor, thanks a million. We look forward to hearing more of the updates, and let us know how we can support you. Thanks a million for joining. Congratulations on the success of the app, and continued success. And we'll do everything we can to help you. And Nick, the same. Congratulations. And I'm glad that the whiskey that's coming to America is the one that made it into my top 3. It would be an awful shambles if I'd said that was the worst one of the night and you shipping a container of it over. So all worked out. A great end to the night altogether.
I like that. Thank you very much, Barry. And thanks again to everybody who's joined in. It's been great fun. So thanks a million.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, lads. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon. Cheers. Thanks, Conor. Thanks, Nick.
Sloan.
Great guests tonight. We're back. The lock-in is back. We've got more next week. Anne is going to join us from Clonakilty. We've got musical guests joining us. We've got more amazing guests and some big plans for the next few weeks and months for lock-ins that are going to keep things interesting, keep things fun. We're going to have some crossovers between live and virtual. Lots of things in the works, lots of things planned. So yeah, please stay tuned and please keep supporting us, keep turning up and keep clicking like. If you haven't already done so, would you do me a favor and share this live stream with your friends, be it on your Facebook profile, be it in a group that you're a member of, be it on an email that you send it to somebody. All the views and all the likes help because it allows us to attract more and more participants who want to join us and want to be part of this. And it's a symbiotic community. We all help each other out. I am fading, and why I'm fading is I had a wonderful day today. We had our first vaccine shot and I'm feeling it now, and my arm is feeling it, and one half of my body is feeling numb. So we will save the songs for another night, and more music coming next week and great guests. So listen, thank you everybody. This has been a great time, so thanks for joining, and sláinte to everybody, and we will see you in the Facebook group Irish Whiskey Fans of America. Sláinte everybody, have a great night.